Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to a heading into the long weekend edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And we got a packed show today. Lots to get to from the Stanley Cup Playoffs, and I cannot wait to welcome in former Vancouver Canuck and former Manitoba Moose Eddie Lack to the program. We'll see what Eddie's got to say about the series so far, the goaltending in the series as well. Catch up with Eddie on what he's up to right now. Jet fans are going to definitely want to be with us for our Murat segment. Murat has two excellent reads up at theathletic.com right now. One, I know Phyllis is in chat and did not like the headline today, but unfortunately for Ehlers fans, of which I am certainly one, there are rumors that Nikolaj Ehlers could potentially be on the move with 1 year left on his contract. So I'm going to talk a little bit more to Murat about his piece on potential landing spots, what might come back in return if the Jets did decide to go that route with number 27. And he's also got a long read on the case pro and con for Scott Arniel as the next head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. We've got some rumors and some insider reports on other head coaching spots around the league, which we'll get to. And then, of course, the Bombers are in action on a holiday Monday. So we'll check in on the first week of training camp with Eddie Tait. And speaking of holiday Monday, it is opening night at Assiniboia Downs. Can't get into the live racing season without bringing in our pal Darren Dunn from ASD before the end of the show. And, of course, you know what comes up right around 3 o'clock, the marble race. Make sure you're with us live on YouTube around 2:45 when we open up registration for you to win the elusive and exclusive WST hoodie for winning the marble race. Shout out to our friends at Shipman Associates for helping us out with those. And of course, we're going to talk about the PGA Championship, one of the most bizarre scenes in recent sports history this morning in Louisville, Kentucky, with world number one Scottie Scheffler being arrested, put in the orange jumpsuit, mugshotted, then busted out of jail just in time to warm up quickly, grab a bite to eat, and tee off where he is 2 shots off the lead right now at the PGA Championship. So we're going to get to all of that. Welcome aboard. Shout out to everyone listening to us on the podcast. And, of course, welcome to all of you hanging out with us here in the YouTube chat. It should be a fun one. Now, just before we bring in Michael Remis, do want to thank all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet just had a riot with Dusty and Pat in the lock shop over at the EST channel. Of course, Princess Auto, the beer can, big grand opening for the season tomorrow at the beer can. Pop by, should be a great one. We'll tell you about that later. Canadian Club, Little Brown Jug, Consolidated Supply, Wallace & Wallace, Modern Man Barber Shop, Manitoba Battery. We'll have a couple Breezy Bend golf reports keeping an eye out on the PGA Championship. Aikens Lake, Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, Assiniboia Downs, the Winnipeg Gold Eyes. Looking forward to their home opener on Tuesday. Boston Pizza, and, of course, the gang over at Royal Sports. Let's fire it up and let's go. Michael Remis, what an absolutely bizarre morning.
Yeah, what a wild morning. We've had some crazy weather here going back yesterday and waking up to see Scottie Scheffler's mugshot and all the assorted social media commentary on his way to the PGA Championship. I mean, hey, you let me out of jail. I got a tee time, right? And, yeah, there he goes. In time to make, what, birdie the first hole? Is that what you said?
Yeah, of course he birdied the first hole. He's just kind of trucking around the course as if nothing's happened. Just listen, we're going to have some laughs because, I mean, I'm not sure there's been content like this on X in a long time. This is when, I know people call it a cesspool, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't want to see on that app that sometimes comes your way. But this is why it's still undefeated when it comes to social media apps, when news and events are breaking. It's been wild. But I do just want to recognize what started all of this. And this was a tragedy where a pedestrian was killed early this morning at Valhalla, I believe with someone working on course. And due to the incident with this person, unfortunately, tragically losing their life, traffic was way backed up, which then, for PGA players at times, they sort of told that, if the traffic's backed up, you just go around. Scheffler apparently did not obey a police officer telling him not to go. He went, apparently dragged the cop for a little bit, and was charged with four charges, including I believe a second-degree assault of an officer, which is just absolutely crazy. And like we were talking on the Lock Shop, if I said to the guys at Coolbet, somebody in the PGA Championship is going to get arrested in between round 1 and round 2, give us the odds on who is going to be in cuffs. Scottie Scheffler would have been the last guy on that list. And yet, there he was with some just incredible reporting, too. I mean, credit to Jeff Darlington, Remis, who was like right there when it happened, turned his phone on, had some incredible video of the incident. Scottie Scheffler looking at Darlington saying, "Help me." And next thing you know, he's off to jail. And then Jeff breaking down what he saw on ESPN, I believe on the ESPN broadcast of the PGA as it was happening.
Yeah, a wild scene where the number one player getting arrested on his way to the tournament. And yeah, you mentioned it, and it is a tragedy that a pedestrian was struck by a bus, and this unbelievable scene where, I guess he thought he had clearance to go through, and there was some confusion and misunderstanding, depending on if you believe Scheffler's lawyer or the police report. So we'll see what happens, because the police report here, it does say that he's trying to get through and he refused to comply, accelerated forward, dragging the detective to the ground, and the detective suffered pain, swelling, and abrasions to his left wrist and knee. One other, notable part about this, Huss, is the detective's uniform pants, valued at approximately $80, were damaged beyond repair. So we hope his pants...
That was in the press. That was the last line of the police report. And I believe the guy's name was Detective Gillis.
Yes.
And when I read this, and I heard Detective Gillis's pants, valued at $80, were damaged beyond repair, I literally thought we were talking like a Shane Gillis skit.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't. It does not seem real. But it's very much real. Assault, second degree of a police officer, criminal mischief in the third degree, reckless driving, and disregarding signals from officers directing traffic for world number one Scottie Scheffler, who did end up getting busted out, got to Valhalla with about 30 minutes to spare, grab a bite, make a few putts, hit a few shots on the range, get to the tee time. And I mean, we've all seen a million videos of Scottie walking out of the clubhouse to the tee time with 50 Cent's Many Men behind him. I mean, no shortage of creative and hilarious stuff going on in and around it. But Scheffler, to his credit, you cannot stop this guy. He's at 8 under right now. He's 2 shots back. Colin Morikawa is in the lead at 10 under par. And Xander Schauffele, who went low yesterday with a 62, 9 under par, has yet to tee off. He'll tee off not in the lead anymore, presumably, unless Morikawa comes back a little bit. So listen, we'll stay all over this today. After Murat joins us, maybe in between Murat and Ed, we'll do a little breezy golf report and give you an update on what's happened. Tiger Woods teeing off shortly. He's at +1. He needs to get some birdies if he wants to play the weekend. We'll keep an eye on the Canadians as well. And I'll tell you what, I mean, considering Scheffler's going to be finishing his round probably in the next hour, for lucky, I'm not sure whether he's going to speak afterwards or whether there's the mugshot, one of the most famous mugshots now in sports history, because I do believe he needs to be interviewed more and I guess get back to the police station within 24 hours of the arrest. So he might be busy afterwards, after his round today. But anyways, it is the story in the sports world. It kind of continues to develop now on the course as Scheffler continues to show why he's the world number one. But an absolutely bizarre morning with a story that, whether you're the most casual of golf fans, barely even knew who Scottie Scheffler was, you certainly know him now. And I did joke with the guys, Reem, on the PGA Tour, they give out bonuses every year for the PIP, the Player Impact Program, usually with guys making noise on social media and those sort of things to promote the sport. Just give it to Scottie now. Probably ends up winning the money list and the PIP money just from this incident today. Hey, listen, before we get to the playoffs last night, and again, we're going to talk about that Oilers Canucks series coming up with Eddie Lack. I know we're Winnipeg Sports Talk, but can we just do a quick veer over to the side and do Winnipeg Storm Talk? What a crazy afternoon we had after we were off, and I think you were out in it.
It was wild yesterday, a wild scene. I was picking up my daughter from her daycare, and then all of a sudden we're waiting, and this hail just came pouring down. The one, I don't think it damaged our car, but it was so loud you couldn't even hear the radio. And I was driving around there were puddles everywhere. It was quite a scene, and it felt like I was in some kind of disaster movie. It didn't last too long. And here I saw Derek Taylor post a nice video from his yard of the hail. It was big on the ground. It was a crazy scene out there yesterday, Huss. Check this out.
It was wild. For folks on the west side of the city, Westwood, Charleswood, and then sort of moving southeast through the city, there was massive amounts of hail. And, usually it was sort of anywhere from pea to penny size. I did see a few hailstones that cracked the nickel size. But it was just how much of it there was. And there's an amazing picture that I think it was Shelley Cook, who was pretty active on X, tweeted out, of a parking lot in Westwood by the Giant Tiger where there were literally just piles and piles of hail. So anyways, I'm always down for a good storm. The weird thing is you usually have a bit of an idea that something like that is coming. There was not even a severe thunderstorm watch. It just went right to severe thunderstorm warning. And I'm in the Corden, Little Italy area, and we got quite a bit of rain at times. I was looking out, to the west, and you could see it was a little darker, but I was still stunned at everything that I saw from everyone's pictures, depending on where they were in the city. And if you were on the northeast side, nothing happened at all. So bring on the wild summer weather. Doesn't look like it's going to be too nice tomorrow, unfortunately, but we will get some sunshine later on in the long weekend. But I'll tell you what, tomorrow, if it's not too nice, or even this evening, that's fine, because it'll be a good excuse to stay in or hit your local and dive into the Stanley Cup playoff action. We got two big games tonight. Game 6 in Boston between the Panthers and the Bruins. After the Bruins brought that series back with a road win, and the same goes for the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. Great doubleheader tonight. Avalanche back at Ball Arena, having come back and beaten the Stars in Dallas to force a Game 6. Selfishly, I'm just hoping we get at least one Game 7 of these two series. And of course, tomorrow night we've got Game 6 between the Canucks and the Oilers. By the way, are you Canuck guy today on the program? Is that I'm just what exactly is going on there?
I was waiting for you to mention it. No, it's just a regular T-shirt, Huss, that has red and yellow.
Quite the collar.
Red and yellow collar. Just a regular old T-shirt today. So no, it.
Well, hey, listen. Let's get to it.
I got this. I'm just doing it for fun here. It feels appropriate to wear it today after the big win last night.
We got to shout out the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, what a victory for Vancouver last night. I mean, we know the star power of the Oilers, but I said before, I mean, the best players in this series, sure, on Edmonton, Vancouver's been the best team. And the way they blew it and let it go in Game 4, Rick Tocchet calling out 5 or 6 of his players as passengers, he's pressing all the right buttons. I thought Elias was a heck of a lot better last night. They get some contributions. I didn't know DiGiuseppe just had a baby. We should have bet a goal prop on him with the baby swag. But it's JT Miller as the hero. And he, in some ways, was sort of the GOAT in Game 4, Reem. He was on the wrong side of the puck on the play that led to the Bouchard goal that won the game for Edmonton in the final minute after Vancouver had tied it up. There he was last night being the hero late in the game, getting the winner for Vancouver and sending the Canuck fans home in an absolute frenzy.
Yeah, and it seems like every time in the series you think it's going to go to overtime, someone scores in the final minute. I was like, great, another overtime. I'll have a late night. And yeah, JT Miller was a credible story. Yeah, he wasn't that aggressive there in the Game 5 loss on the final play and was kicking himself after. He was so rattled after the game he couldn't even answer questions. He's like, guys, I'm just so mad about that. And you heard the story of him texting Rick Tocchet saying he should have been in a different spot, and for him to be on the doorstep for the winner, scoring it. Incredible story, an incredible scene. They're chanting JT Miller in Vancouver. They had the Let's Go Petey chants for Elias Paterson during the game. He's had a rough playoff here and seemed to give him a little boost. How about that? Instead of booing a guy who's struggling, lift him up and show. That was Halford and Brough on 650 there, who started that. So
you know what? Credit to them. Like, I give Canuck fans a hard time. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do. They're psychos in a lot of ways. And, they've been, for the last number of years, it's like they've only been happy when things are going really bad. It has been historically one of the more negative fan bases. But I'll tell you what, they've completely bought into this club, as they should, with what they've done throughout this year. And that was really, really cool to see them get behind a struggling player, as opposed to, frankly, what maybe Canuck fans would have maybe done in the past, which would be turn on a guy. And I always love guys in the media that sort of, embrace supporting the team and doing things in a positive way. So good on Alford and Brough to get that going. It was really, really neat. And listen, the JT Miller chants afterwards was high praise. I mean, I know during the playoffs and at times during the season, we'll get the Helly chants going for Connor Hellebuck here. But the Canuck fans stepped up. It was an unbelievable atmosphere. And again, selfishly, I kind of hope we get another game in that building in this series, which would mean Edmonton would need to win. They're going to be a favorite tomorrow, but I'm seeing, tidbits on X. And listen, we know a lot of guys are playing with something. It would make sense if Connor McDavid is banged up right now, because I don't want to say he was a no-show last night, but for the level that Connor McDavid has set for himself, he wasn't there last night. I talked to Dusty just back in the lock shop, and I mean, the big boys weren't there last night, and they have to be there for Edmonton. Fairly or unfairly, the rest of the team isn't going to drag McDavid and Draisaitl and Hyman over the top. It's got to be those guys. They're playing a ton. And the Canucks are making every one of those minutes take their toll with the physical nature of play. I was so impressed with Vancouver and what they did last night. They were completely the better team for most of the 60 minutes. They deserved to win that game. And here we are, one win away from dispatching Edmonton as a big underdog and moving on to play the winner of Dallas and Colorado.
Yeah, here's Tim Peel, former NHL official. I don't know, now hockey insider, but he's tweeting out, hearing Connor McDavid is dealing with an injury and Zach Hyman is banged up as well. Every team has injuries, but this will be a challenge for Oilers if they are to beat the Canucks. And that's Tim Peel. So we'll wait and see.
There's a lot of new insiders. There's a lot of, I was just going to say, there's a lot of new people that aren't traditionally insiders that now are getting a little tidbit of information and throwing it out. That I still wait to hear from more of the respected names. But again, take that for what it's worth. It certainly would make sense because McDavid was not the best player in the world last night in that game, straight up. And JT Miller's having his way right now. And Connor, without that last matchup for Chris Knobloch, is having a real challenge going up against JT Miller, who really has turned into the heart and soul of the Vancouver Canucks. What do you think about these games tonight, Reem? I know we'll quickly touch on the Coolbet lines a little later on, but Boston at home, Colorado at home, 1 win away from pushing it to Game 7. You'll think we'll get 1, 2, or 0 7 games in a couple days based on these two series tonight?
I want to say 0. I don't know. I have Dallas. I'm in a pool. I picked all Dallas guys and Florida guys, so I'm hoping 0. If I had to pick one that was gonna go 7, I would pick Colorado. I think they're at home. Rupe Hintz. He's out again. He might play Game 7. Should be back for the next series. I think that's a big loss for them. And I think if one team were to advance, I would pick Colorado to force a Game 7. I think Florida's they got to wrap this one up here. So I'm going with Florida. I'll say Colorado extends it to 7, but I really hope Dallas just ends it.
All right. Now, we're going to get into the coach situation for the Winnipeg Jets and more with Murat a little later on. But it does seem like we are getting closer to some clarity in at least some other markets right now. I know Pierre LeBrun reported that Todd McClellan met with the Leafs on Monday, but Darren Dreger reporting that Berube clearly the front runner. And from the sounds of Dreg's reports, it's almost like this is done. They're going to take the weekend, and he said expect a press conference on Tuesday for a new Leafs head coach, which rumored to be former Blues head knock and Stanley Cup champion Craig Berube.
Yeah, Darren Dreger was on First Up on TSN 1050 and said, I'd be surprised if something wasn't announced as early as Tuesday. It is, of course, the long weekend. Will we get a news dump right after we end the show? But some coaching updates today. Pierre LeBrun saying, yes, McClellan met with the Leafs Monday, Tuesday. Berube is still the front runner. McClellan did speak with the Jets yesterday, which I thought was an interesting tidbit, and he also chatted with the New Jersey and Seattle. So Todd McClellan's been a busy guy, and the Devils also have been busy interviewing a number of candidates, which we just mentioned: McClellan, Berube, and Jay Woodcroft. And LeBrun mentioned last week that they have interest in Sheldon Keefe. And you mentioned, new insiders popping up. So we do have to mention Nick Alberga, the Golden Muzzy on Leafs Nation, tweeting out yesterday, right after we went on the show. Where was it? Expect Scott Arniel to be the next Winnipeg Jets head coach, but we will wait and see. I'll give Nick a shout. He was retweeting a lot of Dave McCarthy's appearance yesterday, where Dave came on.
It was funny. Hey, Nick's awesome. He's just not a guy you normally go to for news, and there's a lot of people that hear things right now. And I mean, this is couching it pretty good. Barring a last-minute change of direction, I'm hearing the Jets are all but set to name Scott Arniel as their head coach. I wouldn't even say that's new. I think there's plenty of people that have been said that the Jets are on their way. And listen, it hasn't been there's been a few Zoom interviews. It doesn't really seem like the Jets have really gotten down to brass tacks with any of the other candidates. I don't think you're hiring anybody from a Zoom conversation for a little bit. So until there's some face-to-face meetings, I think he's right that, the Jets are likely to hire Scott Arniel. But, I think there still is some things that can change. We've talked about Todd Nelson, who Elliot Friedman mentioned yesterday on 32 Thoughts. And again, we're going to talk all about this. I mentioned Murat. If you haven't subscribed to The Athletic, you should be, because Murat's got some great stuff, the case for and against Scott Arniel. So we will get to all of that a little bit later on. Reem, I was thinking about Brandon Rowicki. As Rowicki came on, and we were talking about the PGA, and he mentioned he kind of like Colin Morikawa. Morikawa is on fire right now. He's just had 4 birdies in a row. He's now at 11 under par. So he's probably happy about that. But do you remember what Rowicki said? Of course, if you don't know, Brandon's a big Flyers guy. And we were talking about, the Russian goalie that came over and then went back. And he said, well, whatever, as long as we get our Prince Michkov here as soon as possible, that would be great. I'm just reading this in the notes. Danny Briere telling a French media outlet that they may never see Michkov with their team and have had no contact with him since they picked him, what was it, 7th overall a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I don't speak French, so I'm relying on the Twitter translators, but he was on a podcast, La Poche Bleu, and the people on X are saying, they may never see him, and they've had no contact with him. So it's funny. That was the big talk last year that, he was your line leading up to the draft as well. If he was from like Oshawa, Ontario, is he going number 1? But he fell to the Flyers. They took him, and they're trying to bring him over. We'll wait and see what happens. It would be, Flyers team, they almost made the playoffs list this year. They had that huge collapse, and you think he would come in and make an impact. So he is under contract with the KHL. We're going to be on Michkov watch for a while, but sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like they're like, well, when it happens, it happens. We'll just sit here and wait, according to what Danny Briere said on a podcast.
Yeah, well, exactly. But anyways, if you are a Flyer, I'm always interested in, and listen, the Jets have Reshevsky, which is a top Russian prospect. He's got another year on his contract. When you add in all the geopolitical turmoil around Russia and the fact that they're essentially banned from everything else hockey, they're on their own island right now. And it does complicate things with getting players coming over to the National Hockey League. All right, we're going to get into a little bit on this series between the Canucks and Oilers post Game 5 with Eddie Lack coming up in just a minute. But it's a long weekend. A lot of people are going to be, getting out to the lake and whatnot. If you've got big moves to make, though, this year, this summer, our friends at Roley's Transport are the ones that can help you do it. And hey, they've been helping Winnipeggers and Manitobans for over 60 years, family owned and operated right here in Winnipeg, becoming the most trusted name in moving in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. Roley's incredibly well connected. The logistics business takes them almost on a daily basis throughout Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. So they have plenty of runs, flexible routes, timing, as well as the best prices around to make your move not only economical, but safe. And as I mentioned, taking all the stress out of something that can be one of the most stressful things that you'll do all year. Best way to find out more about Roley's is go to their new website, Rolleys.com, Rollys. And at the top of the top right corner, you'll see the request a quote feature. Pop in there, let them know where you're moving to, how much you need to bring, all those details they ask for, and they'll turn it around real quickly for a quote with you, and then can get you moving onto your next destination as economically and safely as possible. Roley's Transfers, Manitoba's most trusted name in moving services for over 60 years. Find out more and request your quote at Rolleys.com. Our friends at Consolidated Supply, we're going to have a good long weekend, but next weekend, it is going to be busy. Opening on Sunday, a 3-day ding-a-ling. It's spring sale at Consolidated Supply. And of course, you know them as the leaders in irrigation services, artificial turf, golf carts, small engine parts and repair, hot tubs, outdoor kitchens. They've got some great deals. If you're thinking about a hot tub, 25% off in-stock hot tubs, friends and family pricing on all sorts of products, club car golf carts, and they're now the dealer for Crest lithium power tools. And there's some wild stuff that Crest makes that you can check out in person there as well, including essentially a robot mower that does the job using satellites. Again, 1395 Niagara Road East, near the Canadian Mint. Pop by there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Consolidated Supply next week for the ding-a-ling. It's spring. Yeah, there's that satellite-guided RTK robot mower from Crest. Very interested to see one of those work. Guys, if you want to get looking good for the weekend, head on down to Modern Man Barber Shop and get it taken care of. Modern Man has 8 locations conveniently located throughout the city, including the newest ones on Plessis Road and Pembina Highway. And guys, they've got you covered with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. They've even got a friendly dog at the Pembina location. Shout out to Toby. Always love it when I pop in and see him there. Book your look and make an appointment quite easily online. modernmanbarber.com. Let you know the most convenient time for you to come in. You can book it, get looking great at Modern Man. Give him a follow as well at Modern Man Barbershops on Twitter. And hey, just before we welcome in Eddie Lack, Manitoba Battery is ready for the long weekend and ready for summer. And they've been getting us through the winter, making sure our cars and trucks are able to get from point A to point B. Well, now's the fun stuff. ATVs, boats, camping batteries, all sorts of batteries for golf carts as well. And the Deep Cycle Marine Battery sale is on. So if you need a battery for any of the quote-unquote toys you'll be enjoying over the course of the summer, now's the time to get down to Manitoba Battery. 2 locations, including the new location on Dover Court. And again, you can shop online, get all the details on the big spring sale right now, and order online at manitobabattery.com. All right, we're going to dive into the Jets with Murat in about 20 minutes. Nikolaj Ehlers' future, the future coach of the Winnipeg Jets, pros and cons for leading candidate Scott Arniel. Make sure to stick around with that. But hey, with the Canucks playing the Edmonton Oilers, so much attention on this series, thought it would be a great time to welcome back one of the funniest former players on Twitter, a guy that was a big fan favorite during his brief time here in Manitoba with the Moose, and a guy that knows a thing or two about the Canucks-Oilers rivalry. Let's welcome in longtime NHLer, now retired, down in Scottsdale, Arizona, Eddie Lack to WST. Eddie, what's up? It is great to have you back on the show. Long time.
Social media star. I love it.
There's not too many people that have more fun on the old X app than you, certainly as far as former players. I mean, and now things are getting so crazy with the Oilers fans and the Canucks fans right now, and you don't shy to be right in the middle of it, do you?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's been a fun few days here because I've been sick at home too, so I've been kind of bored, and I'm just like, all right, let's stir the pot a little bit here. So yeah, it's been fun.
I think back to when you were cutting your teeth in the NHL, and even with the Manitoba Moose, and just how different the world is when it comes to computers and social media. Like when you were playing, like Vancouver always had a fan base that was renowned for being very intense and sort of psycho. But everything has just gone exponentially more nuts now with social media, and it seems like the other teams have sort of followed the Canucks fans' lead.
Yeah, I feel like it's the way that social media has just developed in the last 10 years. I mean, it's been amazing, and it's just so easy to interact with people these days, right? Like for better or worse, right? I mean, a lot of times you do get some crazy comments and everything out there, but that's kind of part of it as well. And I kind of embrace it, like I don't always have good takes as well. My takes are kind of crazy at times too. So I embrace it.
Well, you know what? And we can't blame Vancouver fans for being all fired up. I mean, you followed this team very closely since you retired. Before we even get to the playoffs, how impressed have you been with what Rick Tocchet has done this year and the team that the Vancouver Canucks have turned into, considering where they were a year ago?
It's been an amazing transition this year compared to the last 10 years. Have just been so hard, right? And to see where the team was last year to like being top 3, I think, in the West, I think, right? It's just been like amazing to watch, and all the credit to Talk and the coaching staff. I mean, I really truly think that he will win the Jack Adams, right? And more deserving than like him, right? And I think that they've always had like the players for it, but they never kind of pull the same way as a team. And he just like really found everyone to pull together for once here.
It's like, Eddie, that they kind of became an extension of Rick Tocchet. I mean, he added a lot of what he was as a player to some guys that frankly didn't have the reputation for being that. And I have to say, the guy leading the way is JT Miller, who was a hero last night. He really seems like he has become sort of the heartbeat or the heart and soul of that team, as much as there are other incredible players like Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, JT has been amazing. It's so much fun to see yesterday too, right? Because he wasn't really happy with his game the other day, and then obviously he blew the zone before the puck was out, and then Edmonton scored with just 40 seconds to go or whatever, right? And for him to take accountability for that, to see his game yesterday, he really wanted to win and to obviously get the game-winning goal and everything. I mean, that just shows what a player he is, I think, and how much he means to this team.
I mean, just quickly to last night. This was a game that I don't think anyone could really argue that the Canucks didn't deserve to win. What did you make of just the performance of Vancouver, considering the way the Game 4 ended and their ability to sort of couch that and put that behind them and come out and play their best? And then thoughts on the Oilers, who, I mean, listen, I think their big stars just were not at the level we're used to seeing them.
The Oilers looked tired yesterday. I mean, for those top guys to play 30 minutes night in, night out, I mean, it's got to take a toll on them eventually here. And I think we saw that yesterday too, with Vancouver just rolling fourth lines, right? And I think the fourth line for Vancouver was really good yesterday. That was probably the best that we've seen, that fourth line in this series. And I was a little bit nervous there because I felt like third period we didn't really keep going with the everything. We kind of sat back a little bit more because the first and the second period I felt like it was all Canucks, and then third period starting to get a little bit nervous and take our foot off the pedal, and that's kind of when it goes from 60-40 to a 50-50 game again, right? I was just very happy when they got that goal at the end, but yeah, the Oilers looked tired, and I'm interested to see how Game 6 is going to go tomorrow.
Well, I mean, it's just been a phenomenal series. I think just from if you have no skin in the game, a seventh game between these two teams in Vancouver on Tuesday would be absolutely incredible.
Yep.
And to your point about it kind of becoming a 50-50 game, I mean, it can be a 20-80 game against Edmonton, and 97 can have a good 30 seconds, and it can be in the back of your net. So,
True.
I mean, they've done what they've had to do to get it in. And listen, the last line of defense, your position, the goaltender, has been such a crazy story through this playoffs. How much did you know about Shelov's before, and what have you thought about his performance being thrust into the spotlight under the brightest of lights in the playoffs?
I mean, first of all, it's crazy how well he has played, thinking he only has a few NHL games under his belt before the playoffs, right? And to go in with this kind of pressure and everything, I mean, he's been doing everything that's been expected of him, plus a lot more, right? I watched him here, because they played here in end of March, I think it was. I went here and I saw him in person and everything. Obviously, that he's a great goalie and everything, but didn't think much of it. I mean, everyone thought that Demko was going to be back for the playoffs and everything, which he was, but for him to just go and play this well this early in his career, I mean, it's amazing.
There's probably, well, I mean, you tell me, you played the position in the NHL. Might there be almost an advantage for a guy that, wasn't expecting to play, has so little experience, sort of getting thrown into it without have to be thinking about it so much, as opposed to a guy like Stuart Skinner that went into the playoffs with so much pressure on his shoulders, and it hasn't gone well for him?
For sure. I mean, especially when you start the series and you get to play a game and you're oh yeah, I'm probably just going to play 1 or 2 games because there's no pressure on me, right?
Eddie, what, phone overheat? We lost you there for a minute talking about the pressure on Shelovs and Skinner.
It's Arizona, yeah. Ehlers, I think is going into it with the mentality that he's just going to play a few more games, right, before Thatcher comes back, right? So I kind of feel that he still runs with that mentality here, but if they do make the third round here, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see what the team is going to do, and it obviously depends on how Thatcher is feeling and everything, but yeah. There's going to be some interesting decisions down the road here, I feel like. And then, Skinner, I mean, with the playoffs that he had last year and everything, I think that everyone was hoping that he was going to play a little bit better this year. And he just couldn't get it going. And I felt that it was kind of the right decision to go with Pickard, right? And I think that Pickard's been doing everything that he can and more in this series, right? So I definitely think that he earned his start tomorrow as well.
So you expect Pickard? Yeah, I was unsure. Listen, back's against the wall. Do you go with the guy that got you there, knowing that he'll have something to prove, or has Pickard just been good enough in these last couple of games, I think, to give them the confidence that, you know what, we got to win this game? And I think this guy's just simply playing better than our so-called number one.
And I think, the second goal yesterday wasn't great, but I think that overall yesterday he played a really good game. He made some saves that he wasn't supposed to, and made all of what he was supposed to, except for that second one, right? So it's in my mind, he has played well enough to earn the game 6 start, and that's who I would go with at least.
Hey, I have to ask you about your countryman, Elias Paterson. He was taking a little heat, and you could tell he was down early in the series. Thought he had a better game last night, but just thoughts on where he's at right now, and what they might be able to get out of him with another level.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the dark horse in all of this. I mean, you're up 3-2 in the series without one of your best players playing his best game, right? And I thought so as well, that he looked a lot better yesterday. I thought he took a lot more space. He shot the puck more. He wanted the puck more, and that's all you can ask for him, I think. When he plays the game the right way, that I felt that he did yesterday, that's the Paterson you want, so...
Eddie Lack is with us on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Eddie, well, we've got you there. Of course, you're down in the Scottsdale Heat. Listen, you're a hockey guy. How did you follow the saga of the Coyotes this year? And, from your people that are sort of in the hockey circles down there, how are they handling the move of the team to Utah?
I know, I'm still crying down here. It's been a whirlwind the last few months here, and no one really thought that this is what was going to happen. But, I mean, when you saw the press conference with Morello and Batman here and everything, I mean, you can't blame Batman for moving the team, right? And I felt like this franchise had so many different chances with different owners, and they just couldn't figure out a way to put a rink here in the West Valley instead of the East Valley, and that's basically been the reoccurring theme here. I mean, you had bad ownership here for 25 years, and none of the owners have been willing to put the rink in the right spot here, and we'll see if he wins the land auction and everything here, and if we have a shot to bring a team back in the next 5 years. But I'm not holding my breath as it stands right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sort of with you. I think their best move forward is hoping that Marullo doesn't get everything done, then get some legit owners in there that can make it happen. Yeah. But do you believe, if the rink was there in and around that Scottsdale area, do you think the Coyotes work?
100%. I mean, in my opinion, if you have it closer to Old Town Scottsdale or the Kierland area, or even where the land is now that they're saying they're going to bid on, I mean, that makes sense. And that, in my opinion, will have like a biggest sword of atmosphere here, and the ring's just been too far away. And I know that it works in Canada, where everyone is just like so into hockey, but in a newer market like this, you needed somewhere central, right? And people don't really want to Uber an hour and a half on a weekday, and then Uber an hour back to have a drink or a bite to eat right after the game, right? So it's not been a good fit here for a very long time.
Eddie, listen, it's so much fun having you on the show. At some point, maybe when we don't have all this exciting playoff action to talk about, we'll get you back and we can kind of tell some stories and think back even to your days here in the Moose when we got to meet you for the first time. But listen, fill people in on what you're doing right now down in Scottsdale, because I'm obviously paying attention to hockey, but you got a real job now, huh?
Yeah, exactly. No, I've been selling real estate down here. This is year 5 for me, and specialize in just helping Canadians find second homes or investment properties and everything. And yeah, I love to work with my Canadians. So if anyone is listening, just please reach out to my social medias, and yeah, we'll get you going.
Hey, we got a guy in Scottsdale, and it's Eddie Lack. Eddie, listen, enjoy Game 6 and a potential Game 7. Thanks a lot for doing this, and let's do this again sometime. It was really fun having you back on the program.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
Murat's gonna hop on.
All right, hey, and speaking of Little Brown Jug, gang, if you're heading out to the lake or loading up for the weekend, they got an awesome May-long special exclusively at the tap room. 12 1919s, 12 generic lagers, so a 2-4 of the tall boy cans for just $58.56, a savings of $24. Only available, though, at the tap room. So load up with Winnipeg's finest for May-long. Pop by them to see them on in the exchange today to take advantage of that, starting today right through until Monday. We've got that set up for you. Hey, I know it's going to be a nice weekend to get away. When you come back, there's always things on that list that you need to make happen. And if one of the items on that list is a new fence, let the experts at Wallace & Wallace take care of it. They've been doing it in Winnipeg and Manitoba since 1946 as the leaders in not only fencing, but also overhead garage doors. Listen, if your property needs the security and protection of a new fence or have wintered a number on your old one, they've got you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. Give them a call at 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lowson Crescent off of Kenniston. I know it's going to be sort of, beach gear or at least kind of lake gear probably this weekend, but looking ahead to the summer, if you need to up your menswear game, fellas, get on down to F Apparel, Winnipeg's #1 spot for custom clothing for men, featuring suits, custom suits, beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. 15% discount for wedding parties, and they've got a great promo right now as well for high school grads needing a suit for their big day at the end of June. that they can wear right through until the next stage of their lives. Find out more at 190 Smith Street. And F Apparel is online. You can get more information or book an appointment for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. I know some of you are going to be putting a line in the water this weekend. If you're thinking about, though, at some point this summer, a world-class fly-in fishing destination where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the spot to do it. Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, an unbelievable jewel of the province with world-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality. I cannot wait to get out there later on this summer. If you're looking for a friend's trip, a family trip, an incredible corporate getaway, find out more today at aikenslake.com about options as well as booking availability for the rest of the 2024 season. All right, let's get Reem back in here. Murat's going to join us in a few minutes. And I see Xander Schauffele's teed off. Colin Morikawa is still. Let's do a quick Breezy Bend a leaderboard report for the PGA Championship. Listen, the story of the day is Scottie Scheffler, who spent the morning getting arrested, busted out of jail. He's at 8 under par right now on the leaderboard. Xander Schauffele just teed off at 9. Mark Hubbard's at 10. But the story of the day, red-hot Colin Morikawa, 4 birdies in a row. He is 12 under right now. Rowicki's pick looking very, very good. This afternoon, we've got Tiger, Schauffele, Rory, Brooks Koepka, and more. It's going to be fun to watch the golf Ream, but it's really hard to watch anything going on without still thinking about what the heck happened this morning. And that interview, whenever Scottie Scheffler speaks, will be one of the most viewed interviews, I would imagine, in recent sports history.
Yeah, number one player going to the course in the morning, gets arrested, mugshot, in jail.
4 charges.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty wild, so we'll have to wait and see what he says. I don't know if he's going to say anything or if he can. His lawyer responded and said, that he's basically said that he was didn't do anything wrong and it'll be proven in court. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, it's certainly overshadowing the PGA Championship here when the guy gets arrested on the way to the course.
One other thing we're going to get to a little later on when Ed Tait joins us is the latest on the Bombers. And, that sort of came out of the blue with Adam Bighill going on the injured list as well as Jamal Parker. Crazy to think that both of those guys won't be available for game number 1. It sounds like Dalton Schoen yesterday missed the second straight day of camp. The first preseason game's on Monday. I don't imagine many of the veterans will be playing in that one, but we'll see how things are shaping up with Ed a little bit later on. But let's welcome in our pal Murat. He's got one heck of a background today to join us. As I mentioned off the top of the show, 2 excellent must-reads for Winnipeg Jet fans in The Athletic right now. Talking about Nikolaj Ehlers and the coaching position. Murat joins us now on WST. What's going on, my friend? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you, Huss. Let me know if the audio is all right. I took the liberty to be outside.
You sound
for
great.
this particular visit. Oh, beautiful. I'm in.
You sound great. You look comfortable. The weather looks nice, and we're ready for a long weekend. It's got a long weekend feel right now, Murat.
Yeah, I'm stepping right into it. I wanted to lean right into it. But apparently there are things happening in Jets land, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about, a coaching search or some candidates or even Nikolaj Ehlers or what have you.
Well, I kind of mentioned, 2 just great reads right now, and kind of part of the reason why, an athletic subscription I've always thought is must-have for Winnipeg Jet fans. And, with the ability to really dive into possibilities and storylines on both sides, which you certainly did on the coaching search, but we'll save that for a minute. Because I think with Jet fans right now, player-wise, the most intriguing thing that we are certainly hearing rumors on, and I think common sense would tell you that it is a possibility, is that longtime Winnipeg Jet Nikolaj Ehlers, going into the final year of his contract before unrestricted free agency, is potentially a trade chip for the club. Before we get to everything in it, give us your thoughts on the situation that Ehlers is in, and really both sides' thoughts on it. Ehlers, a great player, a valuable asset for Winnipeg, but also a guy that in his mind, I think, might believe that considering where he's sort of been in the pecking order here in Winnipeg, that there might be greener pastures out there.
Yeah, I mean, we could do the long view on him. Just consider where he would have been in his life when he signed that $6 million extension that comes to an end next year. It's got 10 team no trade clause. Like, this is the sort of thing you give to a player who's part of the foundation, who's like Kyle Connor after him, like Mark Scheifele. That contract ends, and now he's got his extension on the extension now, the big raise that he's going to get. These are the moves that Winnipeg made when it was a team absolutely loaded with quality young players that was building for a future just like the one that it has now. He was supposed to be a foundational cog. What he's experienced in the time since then is moments where he's been a first-line promoted player by merit, certainly some development where he was a second-line player by merit as well. But no matter what happens when he gets that promotion now, whether it's with Mark Scheifele on that first line where he's outscoring everybody dramatically, or whether it's first-line power play time, it never lasts. There is some reason, whether it's his own ability, whether it's three coaching staff's perception of him, whether it's the fit on the team with the teammates, where he's produced more per minute of ice time than any other Jets player over the duration of his contract. That includes Mark Scheifele, it includes Kyle Connor, it includes Blake Wheeler, and all the Jets gone by. No one has produced more points per minute of ice time than Nikolaj Ehlers has. So why is he playing less than Mason Appleton? I think at 28 years old, heading into the final year of this deal, it would make sense, even if he loves his teammates, even if he loves everything about Winnipeg, to at least consider what the future holds for him. And if he's doing that, which I think there's some sense in that, Winnipeg needs to start to consider, well, what's the long term for us? What assets can we get back? And I think that's something that they've started to consider. I think that's something they've started to plan for. And I think that once it has its coaching situation sorted out, that's going to be something we see them pursue.
You know, you laid it out really, really well. He has been incredibly productive. He has not often been in that top line role. And I mean, he had 25 goals this year, 0 on the power play. I mean, it speaks to where he's, making his hay at 5-on-5. There are plenty of theories, and I don't know how many, like over the history of WST, I don't know how many hours we've talked about Nikolaj Ehlers, the situation, where he's at, how he's playing, all that. I'm a little flummoxed by, are we talking about coaches that have thought the same way about a player? Or does this come down to other players in the room being more comfortable with other guys and that sort of making Nikolaj Ehlers the victim?
You know, anything that I would say on that part is speculation. It's just my interpretation. So let's be clear, because I do want to share what my opinions and what my interpretations are. I just don't want that to be taken as fact, right? I think it's a fact that Winnipeg's going to explore trading him. I don't think it's a fact that what I'm about to say interpretation-wise is true. And basically that is that there's two sides to it for me. One is that I think that some of the decision makers are going by emotion as opposed to results. And that applies to Paul Maurice, Dave Lowry, Rick Bowness, where you can look at all the minutes, you can look at all of the outscoring that he does, you can look at the Sterling goals for and goals against numbers. Like, the whole point of the game is to score more goals than the other team, right? And nobody's done that better alongside Mark Scheifele on the top line than Ehlers has. And that's a remarkable thing to say on a team with Kyle Connor on it, and which had Blake Wheeler on it, and so on and so forth. Ehlers has done remarkable work. But I think the emotional side comes into play because he can be a bit maddening to watch. He makes confusing decisions at the blue lines. He makes giveaways. There are moments where he makes decisions that players who aren't as good as him would make smarter, better ones with the puck. And you watch the puck go the other way, and then some chaos ensue. Certainly when he's playing jazz on his way into the offensive zone, I think that flat-foots some teammates too from time to time. And I've always wondered if there's just a preference amongst Jet centers, you know, Scheifele being predominant among them, to play with Kyle Connor, to play with somebody who they know where is going to be a little bit more often. They're not crunching the numbers and saying, hey, well, I'm plus 15 with this guy and plus 2 with that guy, so one of them's better. I think it's about how it feels. Is there truth to the idea that Scheifele has preference? I don't know. He's never said that to me. But if you listen to the way that he talks about Kyle Connor when prompted, and you listen to the way that he talks about Nikolaj Ehlers when prompted, one of them's a little bit more glowing. And
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I can't say I know because he's never said it. Nobody's ever said it out loud. But I think it's a fair interpretation to make based on the sum of what we've seen over the years, where I mean, the decision's been clear. We know that Scheifele and Wheeler in particular, this has been reported by Eric Duhacek, at one point went to Paul Maurice during Kyle Connor's rookie season and said, give us the kid, give us Connor. And there was a decision kind of made collectively. Obviously, the coach has final say, but we know that there's some amount of influence available to players in these situations. And I think that Scheifele would be of the status that, they'd at least entertain that sort of thing. But again, I can't say I know it. I just think it's reasonable to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I listen. I think it is the most fair interpretation of what we've heard from it. And listen, this sort of things happens. I mean, people do have preferences. I will say though, it is a little puzzling, just from speaking about Scheifele, in that we know what a hockey nerd he is. We know how driven he is to succeed. We know that he wants to win, but he also wants to, be at the top of the scoring list and all that. And the evidence is there that it's actually more productive with Nikolaj Ehlers, and yet it's never seemed like that's been a first choice, at least to him, from what we can gather from everything that he's said when he's been asked pointed questions about this exact topic.
Yeah, and he'll tell you he's not the coach, he's not the GM, and he's not making those decisions, and that's completely fair. And at the same time, I've always interpreted that Mark Scheifele has some strong opinions about how hockey should be played, right? And there's been a couple of times where he said, he talks about that puck protection game on the perimeter, looking for the right time to move the puck into the middle. He had said that at times where Rick Bowness was talking about getting traffic in front and shooting from the point. And there's been moments where you think, hey, maybe behind the scenes there's a little bit of disagreement on that front, and that's normal and that's okay, especially when you have a star caliber player like Mark Scheifele. Of course he's going to have strong opinions about how hockey should be played. He's awfully good at it, right? So I think that there's a lot of time for that. But if you listen to him talk about what he values in terms of playing style, it is that puck protection mode. It does involve holding onto pucks and beating players in one-on-one battles for space along the boards. And it does involve perfectly timed cuts into the middle of the ice. And when he and Kyle Connor are on their game, and let's not pretend that they don't have offensive chemistry. I mean, they do connect well. It's the defensive side of the game where they give so much back. I think what feels like good hockey to Mark Scheifele is the kind of game that Kyle Connor plays. And that's good. Okay, fine. But Winnipeg is leaving and has left results on the table by deferring to that. And man, did I ever think that the three of them together looked like a great line in that 1/3 period of that one game in the playoffs when Bonus united them.
Yeah, me too. I was thinking the exact same thing. And bottom line is it hasn't happened. And, the revolving door on the second line with Ehlers, they tried it with Dubois for a long time. It wasn't in. Monahan's come in. There was some moments. Obviously, it didn't happen in the playoffs. And I think the playoff performance, and again, recency bias is real, whether you're a fan and certainly whether you're in management in the National Hockey League, probably not going, maybe not helping the cause to say we need to keep this guy, which brings us to right now. I mean, there is, I don't say there's going to be massive turnover in this roster, but, both up front and on the blue line, there could be. The most significant player, certainly up front, on a potential move would be Nick. If the Winnipeg Jets trade him, and Kevin Cheveldayoff has been in this situation before, Dubois, Jacob Trouba, to name a couple, solid young players within 1 year of unrestricted free agency. In your opinion, Murat, what will the Jets be looking for in return before we get to some of the potential suitors?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, and it's a fun one to explore because the Jets have done well in this scenario. I'm not the guy standing here and saying this is a guarantee, it's a done deal. I can also tell you that previous trade talks with Nikolaj Ehlers' name involved have been more of a simmer, where sometimes the asking price on Winnipeg's behalf has become so ridiculous. And I think that's what happened in 2019 in discussions with the Carolina Hurricanes, where the ask has just become so big that it's clear that they actually don't have interest in moving him. Times have changed. 1 year away from that contract. We've seen Winnipeg do really well. You saw the Dubois trade. I think the Jacob Trouba trade is a good model, particularly if the receiving team has some faith in extending Ehlers once they have him, because Winnipeg got a first-round pick and a promising third-pairing defenseman in Neil Pionk at that time with some top-four upside they believed he could step into, and at times he has. And I think that that's a sizable package for a player who's 1 year away from free agency. At the same time, my sense of things is that it might lean a little bit more heavy towards futures. Again, I don't know that. Again, I'm fairly convinced the Jets are focusing more on their head coaching search right now, and it won't be until sort of pre-draft times that things really pick up in earnest. But my guess is, and my belief is, I should say, more than a guess, I would say my belief is that draft capital will be the name of the day. They don't have a first-round pick via Sean Monahan. They don't have a third-round pick. I think that was from Tyler Toffoli. There have been some moves to take draft capital out. And if there's a little bit of futures-heavy trading involved in Nikolaj Ehlers, I wouldn't be surprised. The trick would be, how do they get value for him?
Well, and, like of all the teams that are listed as possibilities in your article, the one that is the most intriguing to me, if we're talking about futures, assets, picks, prospects, those sort of things, is Utah. We've talked for the last 3 years about how the Coyotes have continued to turn their roster over to trade for picks. They've got, seems like, about a dozen second and third rounders over the next couple. They hold their first rounders, and they've got a lot of young players that have been getting ready to kind of break in. What do you think of the fit with Utah? Because to be honest, I think a player like Ehlers going into a new market with that excitement would be an incredible fit for the, I can just keep calling them the Coyotes because they don't have a name right now, but for Utah, an exciting player that could come in, add some offense with the potential of keeping him longer term. And that maybe of any team right now, if we're talking picks in particular, has a surplus of them that I think would be of interest to Winnipeg.
Yeah, if you don't want to talk picks, we can get into the Jacob Chychrun conversation and how he's a similar player to Ehlers in that he might be more expendable to Ottawa than he would be in other places. And I think that's what Ehlers is facing here, which, I mean, I just see such quality in that player and in Chychrun too. In the case of Utah, though, that is a team, you'd have to see what I wrote or just check Cap Friendly or whichever source, but I counted it all up, and I think there were 10 second-round picks in the next 3 years and maybe 7 third-round picks.
Exactly.
In addition, they have all their first-round picks as well. This is an absolutely loaded team in terms of futures, and it's one that's so loaded that it could pay, that it could overpay for Ehlers. It could throw a first, a second, and a third and not sweat, not have to consider it as an overpayment because they have so many picks. You know that they have ambitious ownership. You know that, credit to the Coyote side of things, they've extracted all of these assets for so many different players and so many different contracts that they've absorbed over the years for other teams. You don't think that they're going to go to Utah and try to make a splash and try to make a competitive move? They've got some good young players. They've got top prospects that are blossoming. They have slightly older players like Lawson Krause came to mind for whatever reason, but Nick Schmaltz, for example, has been on fire. There have been a lot of different things. Clayton Keller has scored a ton of points. There are reasons to think that, I'm not sure that I see a playoff spot for them immediately, but I see some real strides made. And if they get ambitious and they go after a player like Ehlers, well, then you can just increase the expectations all the more.
I think Doug Armstrong would salivate at the prospect of having Ehlers playing with Clayton Keller with what he's able to do. And again, making that impact, like from an ownership standpoint, a dynamic, exciting player like Ehlers that brings fans out of their seats, I think would be a welcome addition to a team really trying to make an impact in their first year. But let's get back to Chychrun because you sort of led off with him in it. And I totally see, I think the Winnipeg Jets, if they could swap out a forward for a real quality top four defenseman, I think they probably do that. I guess the question is, with the exception of the short term this season, for a team like Winnipeg, does that make sense to do considering there's no certainty that Jacob Chychrun's staying past this year?
Yeah, I guess it really compares to what sorts of packages end up being on the table for them if, as I understand and assume that this shopping becomes quite real. With Chychrun, it's almost as good of a fit, at least conceptually on paper for us who get to speculate about things, as Pierre-Luc Dubois was for Patrick Laine back in the day, in that both players seemed to be discontent or malcontent in the places that they were. I think Laine absolutely loved Winnipeg, but just knew his future wasn't here, which would have been tough. And at that time, it seemed like, okay, well, what are the odds that another player, at least in the ballpark of quality, is available? And I think that there's some synergy there with Ehlers and Chychrun in that same way, where, with Thomas Chabot, with Jake Sanderson, with the future that Ottawa is building, there's a sense that their left side is covered. They may have tried him on the right and have mixed feelings about that. I think that he might see more opportunity in other places too, where instead of being part of a 3 defenseman rotation for power play minutes, there's more available. And we remember the incredible almost point per game seasons he had in Arizona, where they were leaning on him for everything. So there might be, an impetus on his part to get to free agency and choose his future. At the same time, I think on the ice, there's balance if Ehlers is set on free agency and if Chychrun is, or there's balance if both players are willing to resign. Otherwise, the balance kind of skews. And I don't know what the future holds for sure for either player, depending on where they are. But just in terms of Winnipeg, believe me, I think if the Jets had been able to snag a Chris Tanev-like player for their top 4 heading into the playoffs, things would have looked a little bit different against Colorado. See what he's done for Dallas. I think a Chychrun isn't necessarily as much of a warrior as Tanev is, but would represent an upgrade at that second pair right side. And that's the type of player that I begin to covet if I'm looking at the Jets roster and thinking of the holes it has.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I do too, but I also think about next season and wonder whether it's Ehlers or whether it's Chychrun, if you're not able to extend the player, I mean, what happens in and around the trade deadline? This is a team that traditionally does not dive heavily into the free agent market and does everything they can to keep their assets. Now, to their credit, they've done a very good job at doing that. But with the new player coming into a new team 1 year away from free agency, I think you either need to blow the doors off with an offer or there is a legitimate amount of risk. And that goes the same thing with keeping Ehlers for the season.
Yeah, both cases. And look, I mean, with a $6 million cap hit in Ehlers' case, it might mean, it sort of erodes at the sheer value of the deal because some teams that might be interested in him would be cap strapped. And I could think of Pittsburgh as a good example of that. Or it might mean he returns to the Winnipeg Jets and becomes one of those situations of do they keep him or do they not, like Andrew Kopp was a couple deadlines ago. And Winnipeg certainly did well in that scenario. That was a great trade, and all the conditions bounced right. New York made it far. Everything landed just right. Brad Lambert fell to them. I mean, that's a lot of things going their way. But there might be some optimism from Winnipeg's part that, hey, we've gone through this. We're a patient organization. Shovel Dayoff has some success with moves exactly like that, where they're willing to take a risk like that. I continue to think plan A is draft capital and futures in advance of the Vegas draft. But, I mean, they've got to be realistic about what the offers are like and pivot as necessary, too.
Two other interesting teams that you mentioned in the article are the Buffalo Sabres, who are another team that's loaded with prospects and picks. But I wanted to ask you about the Hurricanes, especially considering the way they went out last night. I mean, a crazy natural hat trick for Chris Kreider in the third period. And Carolina's back to the drawing board. And that team in particular, Murat, has sort of 1 year before a huge chunk of some of the most important players on their team have the opportunity to hit the open market.
Yeah, what a story. I mean, they're a team that probably embraces the puck possession sort of mentality from top to bottom. It's an analytically informed decision. It's a coaching, Rod Brindamore, hard-nosed, hard forechecking type of decision. They've got a lot of good players who can contribute a little bit of offense and are just so hard on pucks. They win so many battles. The Carolina Hurricanes forecheck is one of the best things that any team does in the NHL, but they haven't had the goaltending. When goalies get hot, they get hurt. And certainly, even though they scored a lot of goals, I think they were in the top 10 this year, and especially Jake Gensel, I mean, what a fit he had been. They didn't get it done again in the playoffs. And there might be some impetus there to say, hey, well, we actually do need a little bit more finishing on this roster, especially from, somebody who contributes so much to puck possession, albeit in a different way, like Nikolaj Ehlers does. I know that they poked around in 2019. That's an awful long time ago now, but it does convey interest in the player. And there could be a lot of fit alongside those star players. They're also cap strapped. Well,
exactly. And, I mean, listen, the Jets could afford to bring players back. But I'm still, the more we talk this through and look at where, and I think Brad Lambert's a big part of it. The fact that he had the season that he had, I think they might have the confidence that if Ehlers does move on and they get futures or fortify the blue line, that they've got a talented young player that might be able to come in and not necessarily be a perfect replacement for Ehlers, but has the potential to grow into a difference maker. But when we're talking futures, Buffalo to me is really intriguing. And, certainly there's the argument to be made, get picks, draft well, develop them, and turn them into players. But I kind of think that where the Jets are right now, with Elias Salmonson and Lambert and Chibrikov, and certainly Rutger McGroarty in the next year, that it might make more sense to have players that were already drafted. They've got the number one prospect pool in the league. And, you mentioned a player like Matt Savoy, who we all saw excel with the Winnipeg Ice. He went back to junior this year. He was a top 10 pick in the draft. Another player that, that might be expendable from Buffalo based on, Zach Benson and everything else that they have, that might be, a fit, but also intriguing based on the timelines of when the Winnipeg Jets look to sort of shift over this core to a whole whackload of new players that haven't yet played regularly in the NHL.
I think the Hockey News should publish a Meet the 2029 Stanley Cup Champions article with the Buffalo Sabres on the front, all of their quality. And look how far the Jets got when everybody peaked, right? They were a very, very good team for a while there. I think the Sabres are well built. I think that they've got a lot of young and veteran players that are stepping into their own, and there's reason to think that they have a lot of success on the way. Their prospect pool is also so deep that one imagines there are players who could shake loose from it more readily than in other markets. And that's where Savoy, who I think would be ludicrous for a lot of teams to trade, is maybe at the upper echelon of players that could move. I was talking to our guy, Matt Fairburn, out in Buffalo, though, and he says, okay, well, that is a player they like. Benson, they're incredibly high on. They're absolutely at that. Jack Quinn stepping into America had an amazing season. Just go through the incredible. But it's not only him. The Sabres have defensemen who are kind of in the upper tier of their prospect pool as well, who are a little bit closer to NHL already, some in college, some in Europe. There are teams like that, and I think Detroit would be another good example, where the prospect pool is rich, that it is a step ahead, just like you said, where they're a little bit more ready to be NHL ready. And I got to remind everybody that go back to that 2017-18 team. One of the reasons the team was great was, its leadership, like Blake Wheeler was at the height of his career in a lot of ways. Another reason it was great was because the Jets were absolutely loaded with young players who made a difference for very little cap hit. And if you're the Winnipeg Jets and you want to go a little bit beyond picks for, a late teens, early 20s player ready to make a difference, and you're willing to give those players ice time, like Wyatt Johnson, I think is a fun one to talk about right now. There's a lot to be gained from that in supplementing a group that obviously wants to win now and in the immediate future.
Murat Atesh is with The Athletic. Go to theathletic.com. You can read the entire long read on all sorts of potential landing spots if the Winnipeg Jets decide to move Nikolaj Ehlers. The other piece you've got in is on really the big story, the number one thing on the front burner, and that is the coaching search. And Murat, we've heard for, a long time before Rick Bowness even left that, it did seem like there was a bit of a succession plan here. We know the Winnipeg Jets think very highly of Scott Arniel, and you sort of dive into the case for Scott Arniel and against Scott Arniel as the new head coach in the other piece.
Yeah, I think we're all sort of assuming that he is the front runner. He feels like the incumbent candidate, even though, the Jets are interviewing other players or other coaches, pardon me. My colleague Pierre Lebrun tweeted today that the Jets spoke to Todd McClellan yesterday, so add his name to the list. The expectation is they might reach out to Todd Nelson as well, who's in the playoffs deep with the Hershey Bears and the AHL Coach of the Year and the defending Calder Cup champion. So there's a lot there. We know that Berube is somebody that they've spoken to, and we believe Dean Evison is as well. They might reach out to Gerard Gallant at some point, and they haven't done that yet to my knowledge, but they may well do. There's a lot of veteran coaches available. At the same time, I just look back at the history. Scott Arniel was somebody who Mark Chipman told me for a piece about Paul Maurice was one of the bright lights. The Jets bristle at the term shelf life. They like longevity, and they thought that, well, after Scott Arniel left the organization, and I remember he had already been hired a couple of times by True North at that point, that he grew, he developed, he became a coach, I keep saying player, that they wanted to hire again as an associate coach 2 years ago. The other element of the history there is they essentially hired him, or at least made that decision well in advance of Rick Bowness's hiring. This was going to happen. It was part of the organization's plan. It was a fit that they liked. And if you look back over the last 2 years, when he's been pressed into duty, when Bowness has been away for health reasons, I mean, he has been, it was a 10-5-2 record this year. I think everybody appreciated that. Players have liked him. The results have been there. He's responsible for the defense, and the PK, which has not been a strength recently, but the defense certainly has been Winnipeg's best calling card over the last 2 seasons. What has he done to shake Mark Shipman and Kevin Cheveldayoff's faith in him in that period of time? I don't think you can point to it. It would really have to be a convincing argument made by another coach, by a veteran coach, or by somebody who the organization gets particularly excited by over the course of its search. And I got to say, sitting here today, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think Scott Arniel is a clear front runner.
Well, yeah, I think, we haven't heard any. Listen, take Zoom meetings for what they're worth. You're sort of poking around, getting a little bit of information, but no one's getting hired on the back of a 2-hour Zoom call. So I think that, until we start hearing that guys are coming into Winnipeg or they're going out to meet in person, much like they tried to do with Barry Trotz, that we're not quite in that serious category yet. One of the things that you mentioned as a con is the optical concerns of hiring from within again and always. And that's something that we do hear all the time. When it comes to coaches, is that fair? Listen, they started with Claude Noel, granted. That was a move for year one. But then they brought in Coach Paul Maurice. And then even when bringing in Arniel, when everyone thought that he was going to be the coach, they went out and got Rick Bowness. How much of that is sort of a narrative and how much is based in fact?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I did a whole bunch of summarizing a moment ago, but the real crux of that piece is let's look at all the reasons why this could be a good idea, and let's look at all the reasons why it could be a bad idea. And we dig into that. And I think that optics, it's interesting. It is important. I think that the Jets can't really go to their exit interviews and talk about becoming 5 to 10% better at every facet of the organization, have the coaching staff, or Bowness in particular, step behind a microphone and talk about how the coaching staff needs to be better for next year, and he took responsibility for Winnipeg shortcomings, and then infill from the exact same well, unless it's done such an obvious and thorough and public search that we all know that they spoke to some great candidates, and that based on the conversations that they had, they were left with the feeling that Scott Arniel had the answers that they wanted. Now, is it fair of us to demand that? Is it fair based on the history of the guys that you named? I'm going to say a certain amount of yes and no to it. Noel and Maurice seem to be good examples, and I don't know their backstory and relationships with the organization prior. So that might be cases why it's not necessarily fair. I don't think Rick Bowness was exactly. I wouldn't consider him as somebody who had no ties to the organization or was an outside hire, even though it had been so long since he was a part of the organization. He'd lived here, he'd played here, he'd worked here. There had been some really substantial things there as well. Scott Arniel, obviously, this job that he has, or the one that just ended, was the third time the organization had hired him. I think that there is a trend. And then the question is, how critical should we be of that? Because when, at different levels of certainly not as high as the National Hockey League, and certainly not even in the context of hockey. I've been part of hiring committees. I've seen people get hired. Familiarity does help. Familiarity is a good thing when the candidate is strong and when you believe in them. And I think a lot of people in hiring positions have told me over the years that, the candidate who is pretty good that is a whole lot more comfortable to hire than someone who could be good that you don't know as much about. And I think that's endemic to all situations. If the person is quality, then the familiarity is a reason why they're stepping in. They hit the ground running, as opposed to something that we should be lambasting them for.
Just before we go on this, and again, folks, you get to The Athletic and read the entire piece. I had someone that responded to a conversation I had with Ken yesterday, saying that if they want to sell tickets, they need to commit to stop doing things like they have always done. And I responded, like, they were 4th overall in the NHL last year, and kind of made it sound like they were 4th last. There's a real bitter pill coming out of the playoffs. And, part of the piece that you mentioned on, there's a lot of pros that, what he was a part of throughout these last 2 seasons with Rick Bowness turning them into a 52-win regular season team. There's also the con of being part of the staff that had no answers for the Colorado Avalanche. How does that measure go?
Yeah, it's so intense. Like we connect to this emotionally before we do it rationally. So the playoffs matter more than the regular season because they feel stronger. The goal that goes in against Connor Hellebuck has more stakes to it. We have a stronger emotional response, and we'll remember it way longer than any series of saves he made in February or March. But when you're making decisions about the future, past performance is a better indicator of future performance, even when you account for the fact that the playoffs are a little bit different of an animal. And we have 164 games worth of Jets tenure under Scott Arniel as an associate coach, and of course, Rick Bowness at head coach, where they got better at all of the things that 2 years ago we were demanding they get better at. There was a cultural issue that they needed to fix. They addressed that. Give credit to Bowness for that. I'm sure that wasn't an associate coach's decision. But they improved the defensive structure. And that was the thing that was lauded and celebrated. And it improved in their first year and improved again in their second, to the point where they won the Jennings Trophy collectively. Give LB some props for that too, as well as Connor Hellebuck, because they played an improved defensive structure. There is a lot to like about that. Whatever distance you perceive Colorado to have been against Winnipeg, however much they still need to grow, I think we need to remember that they grew an awful lot over these last 2 years. And where you balance that, like, especially after the anticipation of a quality run, that was just the rug was pulled out from under the Jets by a dominant performance by Colorado. I think that's hit some people hard, and then going back to the well must feel like just an exercise in futility. And I think that figuring out that balance, I really think you do have to remember those 2 seasons worth of improvement, the 110 points, and say, okay, this might be more about tweaks than major surgery.
Murat, great conversation as always. WSTers, you've got a long weekend reading assignment, both of Murat's pieces in The Athletic. Have yourself a great long weekend, and I'll look forward to catching up next week when we'll see if we've got any more information to talk about, or we're kind of diving more into these big off-season topics as they stand today.
Hey, unless the surgeon is an absolute master. Had to add that to the sentence, but thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Huss.
You're the best. There's Murat Atesh. Give him a follow on Twitter at WPG Murat, and make sure that you're subscribing and checking out his work in the Athletic. All right, we're going to talk Bombers for a few minutes coming up with Eddie Tait, of course. May 31st, first preseason game, Princess Auto Stadium. Bombers are back, and if you can believe it, there's a preseason game this weekend on Monday afternoon. But in addition to the big season coming up at Princess Auto Stadium, don't forget about the big Canada Day celebration at Princess Auto Stadium. They're putting on completely free to Winnipeggers and Manitobans on Monday, July 1st. The activities are going to start at 12 for the entire family. Local market, food trucks, face painting, storytelling, inflatables. And then the main stage gets going at 3 p.m. with performances including headliners, Sam Roberts Band, and Doc Walker. You don't need to get tickets. You don't need to do anything. You just need to mark it on your calendar or plan to be there. Princess Auto Stadium on Canada Day. Huge thanks to Princess Auto for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. See them Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, and you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. While we're at that Canada Day celebration, Bomber games and more, you know there'll be fans popping into that North End, grabbing a couple Canadian clubs and cheering on the home team. Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and maybe it should be the official spirit of your May-long weekend. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts today. Check out the Canadian Club display and get your hands on Canada's finest Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club. Royal Sports, big tent sale coming up next week. Not this weekend, but in the meantime, if you do want to get outside, pop by Royal, check out all their new spring gear coming in. Soccer, softball, baseball, tennis, running, and a huge selection of bikes. And then get down there the following weekend for the massive tent sale with thousands of pieces of merchandise on sale for a minimum of 50% off. Literally thousands of pairs of shoes, pieces of licensed merch. There's nothing like a Royal Tent sale. It is going down May 25th and 26th down at Royal Sports. And hey, what a night we've got tonight in the Stanley Cup Playoffs. If you're looking for a great spot to get together with your gang to watch both the Bruins and Panthers and then the Stars and Avalanche, there's only one place to do it, and that's your local Boston Pizza. The new playoff menu is in effect. The wing flights, the Sicilian square footer pizza, as well as the jalapeno popper dip, my personal favorite. And not only will you be able to enjoy all that with ice cold schooners and more, but you'll also be able to enter to win a grand prize trip for two to the Stanley Cup final. Grab your crew, throw on your jersey for whoever you're following and supporting, and get down to Boston Pizza today. And hey, you can always order online as well at bostonpizza.com. All right, busy week of training camp in Bomberland, and we welcome in our pal Eddie Tait to get us up to speed on what's happening with the blue and gold as they get ready for a preseason game on Monday afternoon. Edward, how are you?
Not too bad. Is this thing on? Are we working?
This is on. This is on. You're sounding great and looking great. I love the handled internally studio that just pops when you join us on YouTube. How's the first week of camp been?
You know, we were talking today a bit, Huss. You forget sometimes. I've been doing this for a while, but you get into training camp and you forget what day of the week it is. And somebody had to remind me that it was Friday. It's the weekend, but they all kind of blur together. It's been fun. It's neat to get back at it again. There's some pretty compelling storylines with this team to track, and we've already got a preseason game on Monday, so that kind of livens up the things a little bit, you know?
Well, for sure. And I have to say it, maybe you can explain to this and maybe calm the nerves of some Bomber fans. We've got quite a few guys on a variety of lists. There's 6 games, there's 1 game, there's a retired list. We have a bunch of guys banged up already, or is this roster management, if you will, at this point in the season?
It's a bit of both, Huss. I wouldn't sweat the Patrick Neufeld retired thing. I wouldn't sweat Brady Oliveira and Nick Dembski being not practicing yet. I think those are all week 1 guys. The Adam Bighill thing came down the other day. That's a bit of a blow. He's put on the 6-game injured list, although Coach O'Shea said he thought he might come back before that stint is up. Noah Hallett and Jamal Parker are both on that list too. Jamal Parker, they think, is longer than that. And Noah Hallett, they said today, they were hopeful that he wouldn't have to miss the first 6 games. So it's a little bit of everything. But when you say 6 games, I mean, that's a third of the season already. And, there's always good defensive backs in camp. And so you'd like to think you could tread water for a while or find a replacement for Jamal Parker. Replacing Adam Bighill is a bigger task. So they think they've got people in house, but it's certainly been one of those things that, no team wants that stuff in training camp, but it's happening everywhere across the league too.
And just to be clear, even if the guys respond very well, ruled out Parker and Bighill for game 1 in the Grey Cup rematch here in the Peg on the 6th of June against the Montreal Alouettes.
That's right. And what's interesting is that, I didn't really get a chance to see a whole lot of Parker before he went down in practice, but they've been running this week with 2 guys at corner, and Tyreek McGee, who was here last year, played at Georgia. I wrote about him earlier in camp. And then Terrell Ford, who's come back from the NFL Canadian at the other corner. So, I don't think anybody around here is sweating that one right now, Huss. I mean, Jamal Parker was a very good player, started at the end of the year, took that job away from Winston Rose. But whatever it is, some teams are, in the 80s and 90s, Winnipeg was known as a linebacker factory. I think now they're a defensive back factory because their scouting staff just keeps finding guys and guys and guys all the time. And so they don't seem to be too concerned about that right now. Like, we'll see when week 1 comes if the guys that are playing corner are getting burned over the top. But right now there's nobody pressing the panic button around here.
What's the latest on Schoen? I know Dalton missed the last couple of days of practice. Was he back there today, or how would they categorize his status?
He wasn't practicing today, but he's fine. At this time of year, a lot, those guys are making the team, right? They don't have to worry about whether Dalton Schoen's going to play. So I think if they just feel a tweak or something, then Al Couture, the trainer, just says, okay, just shut it down for today. We need you for when it really matters. And I think it's just a little bit of it's not roster management. It's just being smart with your roster heading into week one, because the training camp's a grind. They were out there today for from 8:30 to 12:30. Like, that's a long time on the field. So, and things happen. And so you'd rather the guy be ready for week one than to be worrying about whether he can be on the field on May 23rd or something like that.
So, Ed, we've talked a lot about the familiar faces and names, of which there are many, but there's a lot of new ones as well. Who's been turning some heads in camp so far, and who have you guys been talking about? You've been watching the daily sessions.
Yeah, so, you're right. There's a lot of familiar faces, Huss, and then you start to look at the changes, where their changes are going to be, right? Because there's job openings, and we haven't said that around this team for the last 2 years. There hasn't been a lot of changes. So you look at defensive end, and Celestin Haba, who was here last year, and Taiwan Garbett, who was here last year, look like guys that could replace Jackson Jeffcoat. Miles Fox, who was here a bit last year, has been looking at defensive tackle to replace Ricky Walker. They picked up a guy from Montreal, Jabari Ellis, who played tackle with the Alouettes, as another candidate there. So that's the guys jump out for me at the defensive line. They're moving Brian Cole all around the place. We saw him again last year, linebacker, but he's playing a bit of dime now. I mentioned some guys in the secondary. They need a kick returner. So, guys look great when the ball is just kind of kicked to them in practice and there's nobody barreling down on them. That's one to really keep an eye on Monday. Aaron Cruikshank's a guy to keep an eye on. He played at Rutgers, just like Janarian Grant, and was a Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Year in his senior season. There's good receivers here, too. And I know there's not very many openings, but, besides Lawler and Dembski and Wolodarski and Schoen, there's some guys that have popped off the page to me. We talked to Cody Case today. There's KJ Hill, who was the star from Ohio State. I did a story the other day on Peter Afful from Tiny Washburn, but he's kind of a neat story. This is why I need a preseason game, though, hey, Huss, because everybody's looking good right now. Everybody has their moments at camp, and now you start to separate, because when there's somebody in a different colored jersey going at you and they're trying to get a job too, I think the stakes get cranked up considerably.
Speaking of that preseason game, Eddie, Monday afternoon, I believe 3 p.m. our time. We've got a couple more days of practice, so I know they haven't put out the list right now. But how do you see the Bombers roster looking? Will this be almost entirely rookies or guys trying to make the team, or will there be a smattering of guys that we remember from the Western Division champs?
I wish I had a real good answer on that, Huss. All I can tell you is that there's been no signs whatsoever in the last couple of days as to what group might be going. The only thing that Mike O'Shea said yesterday is that they could take up to 79 guys to Regina, which is almost everybody, right? So yeah. Once you get everybody on the plane, then you start to determine who gets in there, who doesn't. The thing is, after this game, I think there's 10 or 11 days before the final preseason game or against Calgary. So, I'm not sure how you want to do that with vets. You don't want to see any vets get hurt, right? But there are guys competing for jobs. And look, let's face it, if Zach Collaros and the starting offense, for example, are running out there, you don't want him working behind a bunch of guys on the offensive line that are new to the league, because that's the last thing you need is for your quarterback to get blown up. So if the veterans come, you can expect to see them surrounded with veterans. And then I think you've got to get some answers at, linebacker and in the secondary. So it could be a bit of a mix and match, right? You might have, like, Brandon Alexander's another guy that hasn't practiced too, but you might have a combination of first and second year guys and a few vets. Like, I'm sure Willie Jefferson wants to play. He always wants to play. So that's going to be an interesting decision. I think we'll probably get a better sense of that after practice tomorrow, Huss, because on Sunday there's a walkthrough here, but they're just going to get on a plane and fly out later in the day. So I'm not even sure when the official depth chart will come out before Monday's game.
How's Osh doing? The coach back at it, first week of camp. You pleased with what he's seeing right now? Any highlights of what you've been able to garner from what he's had to say?
He's in a good mood. I think, sometimes change can be good. And I'm not saying that if you had run back everybody from last year, that wouldn't be the right move too. But, there's every camp has kind of an energy, right? And you've got a couple changes in the coaching staff with Jordan Younger stepping in now as defensive coordinator. Richie Hall's now a defensive assistant. And so that's one thing that can energize because it's different ideas. And then Mike Miller now goes right from a player to special teams coordinator. So you can see his energy out there. And like even today at practice, Coach O'Shea, the little things, right? Whenever there's a ball on the ground, even if it's an incomplete pass, he wants the defense getting in the habit of running to the ball. And so if they're asleep, all of a sudden you see this 50-some-year-old guy running down the field to scoop the ball up. And there's all of a sudden 6 defensive players thinking, wait a minute, that's the head coach. We got to, we can't let him get the ball first. And so I saw it today. He gets after them if they're falling asleep. And when a guy like that is still running 40 yards to scoop up a ball in the end zone, then I think that snaps everybody to attention. You can't fall asleep around here.
Hey, for folks that are in on the long weekend, can they pop down and check out practice and just fill us in on what you've got heading into the preseason game with the staff at BlueBombers.com?
So Saturday's practice, tomorrow's practice is open. It's in the morning. I'll put it up on what time on our quick hits, which we do every day. Again, there's nothing on Sunday. Monday is the game. Tuesday, there's no practice here, but I think most of the players are in for meetings and they have to do some headshots and stuff like that for our content team and for TSN. So tomorrow would be your last chance to take a peek at the team before Monday's game. Our content team, man, I'll tell you what, we crank it out. Those guys over there, Rylan and Sam and Josh and Cam have been doing a bang-up job. We got some words, too, from me. So we have a lot of fun over here, and it's a great team to be around, and we're cranking it out like crazy. So we're energized, too. We've been waiting all winter for this, so it's fun.
Must stop every day for all Blue Bomber fans, bluebombers.com with Ed and the gang. Eddie, have a great long weekend, and here's to a great preseason game and everybody coming back healthy.
That's the key right there, Huss. Nobody get hurt. Thanks, buddy.
You can't make the club from the tub.
That's
Chris
right.
Mulvey always used to tell us. Have a great one, Ed. All right, there is Ed Tait from bluebombers.com, 3 p.m. Monday afternoon, and we'll break it down with you. Coming up, we'll get Hammer on Tuesday to fill us in on what's happening with the Bombers as they head into another week of training camp. 1 down, 1 to go in the preseason. Hey, long weekend is here. I mentioned if you are staying in town and you want to get outside and enjoy the best beer garden, outdoor bar, restaurant in town, it is most definitely the Beer Can. 1 Granite Way, right next to the Granite, just over the Osborne Bridge. And it's the grand opening tomorrow. They're going to have DJs all day, door prizes, gift card giveaways. If it is raining, I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of moved some of those festivities to Sunday. Bottom line, the Beer Can is open every day from noon until midnight. And by the way, chips and queso, amazing. And the Golden Gal Burger from the Cosmos guys, phenomenal. And I should mention, PWHL final, semifinal, game 5 tonight between Toronto and Minnesota. The ladies at Next Door at 116 Sherbrooke are going to have that on in all the PWHL playoff games. We don't know when the series starts. Planning on having that watch party hosted by Liz Hood, who was with us earlier this week. Some great prizes to win as well for game 1 of the finals. But again, we don't know when that is, and it could actually happen before we get to Tuesday's show. So give them a follow at Next Door WPG on Instagram. They'll put out information on that. Of course, you'd be following Liz as well. I'm looking forward to getting down for that. And, depending on what happens, they might do it on game 2 based on the timing of it through the long weekend. But every PWHL game right now in the playoffs on with sound at Next Doors. If you want to support and watch some great women's hockey, that's the place to do it and get some great eats and beers while you're at it as well. The Gold Eyes lost yesterday, back at it tonight against the Kansas City squad, but the Fish are back on Monday. And Tuesday is the Gold Eyes home opener. Brand new scoreboard, brand new patio decks on the left field by our favorite spot, the original Craft Beer Corner. Make a plan to get out to the home opener on Tuesday. And join us on Tuesday we'll have a confirmed date for our WST patio party at one of those new patios by Craft Beer Corner coming up next month in the month of June. Goldice.com for all information on the upcoming season, and we'll look forward to seeing you down at the ballpark. I was just saying how exciting next week is going to be. We got the Sea Bears home opener on Friday. We got the Fish on Tuesday. And on Monday, of Victoria Day, we kick it off with another year of live racing at Assiniboia Downs. Cannot wait to get back out to the track. 50 days of live racing. Remis and I going head-to-head with our picks on every day of live racing here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Sure, opening day is probably full, but start making a plan to get the reservation for that amazing prime rib buffet in the clubhouse and more, and feel the action. And again, we'll have more information on a couple of fun nights we're going to be doing with WSTers at Assiniboia Downs throughout the season. I believe we're going to have Darren Dunn come up right away. Remo, do we have Darren right now? I can't see him.
You might be able to hear him.
Okay, perfect. Darren, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Excellent. We can certainly hear you. We can't see you, though. I'm not sure whether there's an issue with the video or not, but should we just pop in and pop back out, Reem, or just take it like this?
Jared, if you want to rejoin, we can try it.
Okay. It says camera access allowed, and I've continued to...
Yeah, I'm not sure.
that I should be there, but you want me to, again...
Yeah.
Tell you what, just pop out and try again, and we'll see if we can get Double D.
Okay.
And if not... We'll throw up a photo of Darren and his mug. Darren, we're about to get back at it. First off, how'd the presser go today with all of the assembled media? I think we just lost him in a minute. Hey, while we get Darren in, let me fire up the why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And let me ask all of you, who's going to make it Game 7 on the weekend? Is it going to be the Boston Bruins? Is it going to be the Colorado Avalanche? Will it be both, or will it be neither? Let's get your suggestions before we get to the Coolbet lines coming up in a few minutes here on the program. Of course, we also do have a marble race coming up in just a few minutes. We have not opened it up yet, but pay attention to the chat. And when it comes, that's when you put in exclamation mark marbles, and we'll fire that up in just a minute. As we get Darren in, I will quickly touch on these Coolbet lines for these games tonight because we got two beauty Game 6s. Both Boston and Colorado winning on the road in Game 5 to bring it back home. The Bruins a plus 124 underdog tonight, and the Florida Panthers minus 147 favorites to get it done. The Panthers are a road favorite. The Dallas Stars, not so. The Avalanche, a slight minus 117 favorite. And the Dallas Stars basically even money at minus 101 for those games tonight. Man, there's tough picks this evening, I got to tell you. The one pick that I actually do really like is in the NBA. Indiana, minus 5.5. All these home games have sort of been blowouts, and I think we're going to get 7 at MSG on the weekend between the Knicks and the Pacers. And holy smokes, how about the T-Wolves last night? Blowing out the Denver Nuggets. And that's going to 7. We'll have that on the weekend. It should be awesome when we get to that. Tomorrow is Game 6 between the Canucks and the Oilers. We talked about it with Eddie Lack a little bit earlier on today, but Edmonton minus 200 and the Vancouver Canucks plus 168. You can also get series prices, and don't forget throughout the weekend, live betting on the PGA Championship. We'll do a quick leaderboard update before we drop the marbles a little later on. But the main event on Monday night is out on the west side at the track, night 1 of another live racing season at Assiniboia Downs. And our guy, Darren Dunn, is back on WST. Double D, thanks so much for doing this. You're, as usual, looking like $1 million US tax-free and ready to go for the long weekend. How are you, my friend? It's great to talk to you again.
Oh, good to talk to you, Hustler. We're ready to go. We're excited. I've done this for decades, and somehow I still feel like that kid in the candy store, that, that Christmas morning feeling. I can't wait. The weather's been a little inclement recently, but the horses continue to train. Just a stellar jockey colony, lots of horses, an enthusiasm, a vibe out here as it relates to the sport that is you can't help but get sucked into that, and then also point towards what's going to happen Monday night. A little bit more unique this year with the integration of Indian horse relay racing, so it's going to be quite an experiment and an experience on Monday night as we continue.
What is that?
We partner with the Manitowoc Festival the last 3 years. That's going on right next door at the Red River X. It's considered, honestly, North America's original extreme sport. It is high-speed horse racing out of the Indigenous community, without a saddle, no stirrups, fully bareback, without equipment, no safety gear. It's not for me, just to be clear. I can't ride a horse to save my life. But having said that, it's an incredible experience. It's hundreds of the years in the making. It's extremely historical. So we've had it in the afternoons the last 2 years, and this time, for the first time, we're going to integrate it to the live race card. So we're going to run a thoroughbred race, then an Indian horse relay race, thoroughbred race, relay race, etc. There's going to be cultural displays throughout the evening, family fun night. Give me a little bit of weather, and I will give you a great evening of entertainment for free. And you can park for free as well, as you know.
I cannot wait to see that. That sounds so interesting.
It's a little crazy, I got to be honest with you, but cool.
Sign me up for that, Darren.
Okay.
Listen, you mentioned, sign me up to watch it. Don't sign me up to participate it. Let me be very clear. Let me be clear about that. We've worked with you for so many years, and it has been so, just awesome to see how you guys made the most of the biggest challenge in our lifetimes with the pandemic, grew, moved the dates, dominated, quieter nights on the live racing schedule to really bring a new sense of financial health to the track. But a big part of it was, the horse colony. And you mentioned we had Kurt Contois on before the Derby a couple weeks ago, and we're sort of poking him for how things were looking around. And he said, it just continues to grow. Are you seeing that positive momentum continue into this season with more horses, trainers, bigger fields, and all the things that you love to put on for the show?
I have to tell you, that was accurate information. I absolutely do. I've got 3 or 4 more jockeys than last year, 3 returning champions. I've got some, let's put it in other sports terms, some first-round draft pick talent coming out of Barbados in the saddle. Some of the best horses, I think, that have ever raced at Assiniboia Downs. The field sizes for both Monday and Tuesday are already big and strong, and that should carry on. We just put together the 3 Derby series with Western Canada, Edmonton and Vancouver to link our Manitoba Derby for the second time with the BC Derby and the Canadian Derby in Edmonton. On track, you're going to see a product that's not only going to bring the skill level to the table, but the liquidity in the pools for wagering for those who like to, as you say, throw a shekel or 2 down. It's going to be there. We bet $1.2 million a day. Our partnerships have only got stronger over the winter. That's something that we've done. On a very quick short story, I'll tell you, I was at a conference in Arizona in December, and a quick story about Australia. Impossible to get in there with your racing signal. Australia is a horse mat. They shut down the continent for a horse race. It's a national holiday for the Melbourne Cup, just to give you some perspective. It's so difficult to get in there. We got our toe barely in there during COVID. We got it in with what I would call the East Coast Hockey League signal buyer. Well, it was well received, upped our game with the show, went to HD, et cetera, changed our graphics around with that niche Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evening. Next thing you know, we're dealing with, I'll call it the AHL version. And then the last 2 years, we're dealing with the NHL version, a company called Tabcorp. But back to that Arizona conference, when the lead signal buyer from Tabcorp rolled into the restaurant and said, Assiniboia Downs, we love you. Don't change anything. We love your schedule. The biggest thing about that, beyond the love and the affirmation of the schedule, was the enunciation of the name. I go all over the place, and I'll tell you, it is butchered like you wouldn't believe. Assiniboia, Ass Downs, they can't pronounce it. It's part of the reason we went to ASD sort of as our call letters. Like CNN, nobody goes, geez, I will love watching the Cable News Network, or the Canadian Broadcast Corporation had a hell of a rerun of the Beachcombers. It's CBC. So I want someone in Philadelphia or Florida or Australia to just go ASD, race 3, $5 to win on number 3, not try and pronounce Assiniboia. Having said that, the Tabcorp lead buyer walks in, and it was an event put on by Woodbine, and so there was probably 50 people at this event. To single us out and to correctly say Assiniboia was like, we've arrived.
Now you've made it. Now you made it double
Sorry,
D.
long-winded story, but it just tells you how far we've come.
Hey, listen, you and the incredible staff there have done so much work over the years. And I mean, anyone that's been a regular attendee has seen just the track flourish, and it's been so great. Now, we have continued to grow. There's probably a lot of people that are seeing you on our program for the first time and maybe haven't been out to Assiniboia Downs. So before we go and get into night one of live racing on Monday, fill people in on what's waiting for them. Again, free parking, free admission.
Yeah.
Can go and take care. I mean, listen, there's a reason why every media member shows up to the press conference, because it's the best damn spread in town, and that's for every night of live racing. We just give people an idea of what's there for them when they get going throughout the year.
Yeah, and appreciate that, Hustler. And, to that end, I'll use that the line from that amazing delicatessen on Grant, but we don't cheat on the meat. AAA certified prime rib, cut it with your thumb, available during our 50 home games, if you will, as I call them. You do have to get reservations in advance. So fortunate that we sell out on such a regular basis. But you can park for free, walk in for free. Where we positioned this live racing scenario, I don't compete with the Bombers Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't compete with Isla Dinga Dungarin, Corn and Apple Festival, Folk Fest, Country Fest. I don't compete with lake life, so enjoy the weekend at the lake. But early in the week, get your heart racing and do the Downs, because we have an option for you. It's cost effective, whether you want to wager or not. For the family, July, August through to Labor Day long weekend, even on our opening night, it's a family fun scenario. There were all kinds of activities for the kids, whether they want to have a bouncy castle or they want to watch a horse get saddled. So elite talent on the track, all kinds of activities to do, and it's outdoors. So you might enjoy the air-conditioned terrace dining room in the prime rib, but you might also want to grab a cold beer on a hot day and bang a program on your leg and say, this is what Manitoba's all about. We're nonprofit, so everything goes back into Manitoba. One of the greatest joys is what we create for this province: 1,100 to 1,700 full-time job equivalents, 34 to 40 million in taxes generated. So with a supportive government deal, we give back 3, 4, 5 bagger and let the government decide how they want to spend that. But I'm just thrilled we're not an American-based gaming company, sucking funds to America. Everything we do out here stays in Manitoba, and we bring in so many people out here to spend their dollars here. No shortage of options. And then the other thing is, it did free up our prime dates. So we have weddings, socials, corporate events, Manitoba night markets. There's nothing that we, won't let someone's imagination go wild with. It we'll try and work with them on. And truthfully, we've never been busier, though I'd never take for granted that the phone will always ring, and forever remind my amazing staff of that.
Darren, I cannot wait to see you and everyone on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Again, Monday and Tuesday for the first 2 weeks, and once we get to June, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like clockwork, each and every day. We're looking forward to bringing a bunch of WSTers out for a couple of events, and definitely going to be getting there at some point on opening week for the opening night on Monday, as well as night 2, which is Tuesday. Shout out to Sharon, Sherry, and the rest of the crew, and you. Thanks for the support, and we will look forward to seeing you for day 1 of 50 to finish off the long weekend in style at Assiniboia Downs.
Love it. Thank you. Appreciate it, Huss. We'll be in touch. All the best, my friend.
You got it. Have a great weekend. There is the man himself, Darren Dunn, the CEO of Assiniboia Downs. And again, every day when they're at the track, Remis and I will be making our favorite picks. You can bet on hpibet.com if you're not able to get down, and they do a great job of broadcasting the races on YouTube with some good previews from Kirk and Stretch each and every day as well. Thanks again to Darren Dunn for jumping on. All right, everyone has entered in with marbles. Remo, if you want to officially say that's that and wrap it up, and we will get to some marble racing. Horse racing on Mondays, marble racing on Fridays here on WST. While we do that, let's do another little golf report for Breezy Bend, because the afternoon individuals are underway, and I have not listened to this yet, but I have seen Scottie Scheffler did do a press conference afterwards. That is the first thing I'm going to be doing as soon as we finish WST. But this is the way things are looking right now at the PGA Championship. The story, of course, was Scottie Scheffler getting arrested this morning. 4 charges. Popped out of jail just in time to make his tee time. No big deal. 5 under 66 for the world number one. He's at 9 under, 2 shots back of the leader, Colin Morikawa. Great 65 for Morikawa today, 6 under par. He's one up on Xander Schauffele, who was the leader after one day, a 9 under 62 yesterday. He's 1 under through 4. He's at 10 under par right now. Thomas Detry, 9 under as well. Austin Eckroat at 8 under. Mark Hubbard as well. And then we've got Harris English and, my guy Tony Finau, birdie number 1. Tony has just teed off. He's at 7 under par. And Rory McIlroy, 1 under for his round through 3. He's at 6 under par. Some other notables, Justin Thomas is 3 under through 4 today. He's at 5 under par. Jason Day, Shane Lowry, Minwoo Lee, Billy Ho, Patrick Cantlay, all at 4 under par. Trying to see Brooks Koepka. Brooks actually bogeyed the first hole. I don't like to see that. Brooks is at 3 under, along with DeChambeau, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, and the bad guy, Patrick Reed. As far as Canadians, what do we have? We have Adam Hadwin as the top Canadian right now. He is at 4 under par. And he's just teed off. As we continue down the leaderboard, Corey Connors is 2 under par right now, and he's just teed off. He's playing in the afternoon as well. I see Jordan Spieth there as well. Adam Svensson, Coolbet guy, he's at 1 under. He's on his 5th hole right now. It doesn't look good, though, for our guy Taylor Pendrith. Although Pendy's just on the 4th hole right now. He's even, +1. The projected cut line right now is 1 under par. And for those of you that are fans of Jeff Feinberg, I know the guys will be doing a cut sweat show after we're done. So if you want to head over to Mayo Media Network and see those guys sweat it out and have some fun talking PGA, they'll have all of that for you. All right, Reem, well, long weekend. It's always exciting getting into the marble race on a long weekend, knowing that it's a great way to finish off a week and knowing that we got 3 days to have some fun before getting back to work for everybody.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend off. Got to put out the patio furniture and do everything. So I'm super. It's awesome. Get up to the long weekend. I got my generic hat on, Huss.
Yes, you do.
Ready for the weekend. That's a great deal that they have there. So we did hear, before we do this, give some news. I guess Elliot Friedman tweeting out that Craig Berube is far down the road to be the next Maple Leafs head coach. So if you're following along, not exactly a big surprise there. Although maybe you thought, like, hey, what's going to happen with the Rod Brindamore in Carolina? Could Toronto like swoop in there or something last second? But doesn't looks like Berube is going to be. And Scottie Scheffler did speak after his round, Huss. This was his line. Let me just get it so I don't butcher it. He said, "I did spend some time stretching in the jail cell." Scottie Scheffler on his morning prep.
Absolutely unbelievable. The talk of the sports world, world number 1, Scottie Scheffler warming up for round 2 of the PGA Championship, a major, in jail this morning after an absolutely incredibly bizarre incident.
You want the clip? Sure.
Please. Before we get to marbles, let's just quickly get to
it. Just came up on my feed. Show it to Chris Meany. Here it is.
How do you encapsulate everything that happened to you today?
I don't really know. I feel like my head's still spinning. I can't really explain what happened this morning. I did spend some time stretching in a jail cell. That was a first for me. That was part of my warm-up. I was just sitting there waiting, and, I started going through my warm-up. I felt like there was a chance I may be able to still come out here and play, and so I started going through my routine. I tried to get my heart rate down as much as I could today, but like I said, I still feel like my head's spinning a little bit, but I was fortunate to be able to make it back out and play some golf today.
How do you encapsulate?
That is absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. All right, let's get ready for marbles. I did see a marbles champion out in the wild last night wearing their championship hoodie. Shout out to Amanda, who was fired up for a long weekend. Everyone, this is what we're playing for. The pride and prestige of the exclusive WST hoodie. Shout out to Shipman Associates for helping us out with those. Great promotional products company if you need anything. And the winner's going to get the thing. You can't get it anywhere else. It's just for Marbles Race winners. There's no price tag on these things. You have to win it to get it. Ben, listen, before we drop the marbles, we got to get into it with the theme from none other than the man. We had a great time with Tristan Rivers music actually at the Kenny and Reddy party on Monday. But Tristan Rivers sets us up for marbles with today's version of the marbles theme on WST.
It's Friday, another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself, maybe an ice cream cake or a bottle of wine. From the whole day in so lax you can't deny. Why is ever even for pleasure? If I love to try, it's time to do a marble race. Now separate best to worst. Marble race. And pause the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spam or you will cover the whole thing. Marble race. Don't look for it's too late. Just go.
All right, listen, while Remis gets things set up, I got to give a few shout-outs to people in chat. Hey, my guy, Todd Fertani. Highway 1, East Lake bound, and some marbles. Life is good. It must be Friday for Tanny. Have an awesome weekend. I am jealous. And by the way, yes, thank you, Phyllis, for mentioning. Can we get some more thumbs up here? We've got 350 here. We've only got 176 thumbs up. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel on YouTube. Just press that subscribe button so you're eligible to win the WST hoodie. It would be very nice if we could get that to 200 we would appreciate it. Scott Westman actually was out at the track today and said the buffet was amazing. Of course it is. It always is. And I see some ESTers in here as well. Northside Sandwich, Surveyor Brett predicting an EST marble win as well. And our pal and Jen Cool, always first in the lock shop every day. What's up, Jen? Great to see everybody. So what do we got here, Reem? How many marbles today and where are we going?
Okay. We have, well, 356 people in the chat. That's not how many marbles we have. I have on my sheet 206 marbles. I added one for you. A lot of people adding them for Darren Detition, passed away yesterday. We had some incredible tributes, by the way.
Oh, wow.
That. TSN, well done. They put out a number of videos. I did read the Bruce Arthur article. I just want to say there was one paragraph where I was crying. Hold on. Where was this line where I could not believe it? Hold on.
You get that. Hey, there's the 18 Over Par podcast, boys. What's going on?
Okay.
Hitting the links this weekend, I hope, fellas. This looks like tomorrow, by the way. And we just grab that thing while we're doing it. Today, 23 and sunny outside. Very nice. Chance of some T-storms later on. Tomorrow looks like it's, 60% chance of showers. A little cooler, 14 for the high. And then sunny and 18 on Sunday, which should be good. A little cloudy on Monday. But that's fine. We've got some great hockey to go watch for Saturday night, a big night for our friends from EST, with the Oilers looking to stay alive at home and make it on to Game 7 back in Vancouver. Did you find that?
I did. And who spent? You mentioned the guys from Edmonton winning. Spency notes a guy like Edmonton, EST winning marbles would be worse than Baltimore winning the Grey Cup. Pretty good.
That obviously is Spency, not to be confused with Spency 5 Sensi, and EST are always in the lock shop that may very well be with us right now. But quickly get to that paragraph and then.
So this is from Bruce Arthur, and I'll put it up here. Near the end, Dutchie still made people laugh. James Duthie asked him if he wanted anything from the Super Bowl, and Dutchie texted, "Yeah, bro. Go to the cancer-free store and grab me one of everything. I'll transfer you the dough." And near the end, the very end, Dutchie said, make sure my obit's better than Bob Cole's.
It's so sad that he's gone. But I tell you what, he's still making people laugh. He's still making people laugh after he's gone. And I'm with you, man. The tributes yesterday on social media, the work that the people at TSN did. We don't often give a lot of love to the TSN folks considering what happened with us, but it's definitely deserved today. And you really feel for all the people that are still there, our former colleagues and coworkers that were so close to Darren. And, it's going to be a tough little while, but he will certainly be missed, but he will never be forgotten. All right, let's do this. What's our course today?
I'm loading it up. I just had to do a quick update while we read that. Okay, this was a good one. It had a new feature that I hadn't really seen. So there's going to be a interesting finish here, I thought. This one is called Rolling Down Park.
Rolling Down Park, all right.
Rolling Down Park. I tested it out. This one passed. So let me just load it up.
Doing a lot of track testing to make sure we only have the best of the best.
Man, I'm not
big
just
Friday race.
I'm not just throwing up any like crappy track up there. We want to make sure it's got like good obstacles. There's not gonna be any like portals or weird finishes. We really care about putting together a good race, and there's a lot of dud tracks out there where you can't see what's going on. And I didn't think this was one of them.
All right. Well, let's do it. Folks, by the way, while we're getting ready for this marble race, throw in chat where you're spending the weekend. You staying in the city, you heading out of town, heading to lake country, a little lake life. Let the rest of the WST gang know what's up and where you're at. But everyone's here right now because it's time for a Friday marble race on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to go to Little Brown Jug and pick up that unbelievable special, the 2-4 for $58, save $24, 12 1919s, 12 generics. And I may have a couple Little Brown Jugs down at the beer can as well whenever it's nice outside. Looking forward. Tomorrow should be a great day as long as it's not pouring. That grand opening day, they got prizes going on, DJs all day. And as I say, don't sleep on that Golden Gal burger from the Cosmos guys. Absolutely phenomenal. All right. Rolling Down Park is today's track. This is how we kick off a long weekend on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Good luck to everyone. The winner will receive a WST exclusive Marbles Championship hoodie. Good luck to all of you. Remis, drop the marbles heading into the May long weekend. I always like this because, especially with these new tracks, I have not seen. This almost looks like a miniature golf course. Whoa, we've got a ton. All caps Kyle out before it even started. There's a few people that got taken out. I hope I didn't get taken out, to be perfectly honest with you. David Asplund looked like he got shot way up. We've got a clear lead for David Asplund right now. And now a whole... This is a graveyard today, Reem. Look at this.
I think there's just so many marbles. Like when I tested, I only tested with 50. There weren't as many getting bounced. So
that makes sense.
I have to
Let's
change
see who
the
can
testing.
catch Dave. Dave slowed down a little bit. Klassen is coming up. And we've got a very interesting... these are new obstacles that I've yet to see. Klassen, Farmer Brian, former winner, I believe. Chris Vermette, I see Chris. He's in there. David Asplund has slowed down a little bit. Now we've got a bunch of marbles coming in and picking up speed. Can anyone catch David Asplund? We will see. We've got a little bit of a traffic jam. Whoa, Matt Hyman was getting thrown out and ended up landing on the track and is now in first place. Okay, things are getting crazy here. Everyone is in the spinning globe. Who's coming out first? Retro Oilers. I think that might be an EST here. Presley and Matt Hyman. It's great to meet Matt Hyman. He's in here every day. Met him for the first time at the at TCB on Monday night for the Kenny and Reddy party. Oh, Tristan Rivers music Tristan Rivers was saying we still owe him one for a previous win. So here's Tristan. Matt, Cowboy is in the mix as well. I don't know if Cowboy's ever won. Who's going to get down this big funnel first? You were right. Matt Hyman in first, Cowboy in second. Tristan, Spency, Ardis. Wild track. If you were able to, VR Montenegro, there's an ESTer and a loyal lock shopper. What's up, VR? Okay, things are slowing down a little bit. Matt Hyman and Trevor Red Ranger, Cowboy, Spency, Ardis, Klassen, VR, Leanne, 18 Over Par podcast as well, and BMCB. This is interesting. This is like a slow spinning wheel that I guess you drop back in.
Yeah.
At a certain point. Okay, and that's the end. Great camera work, Remis. Great production on this one for a new track. All right, it looks like Matt and Trevor Red Ranger are making the move right now. Matt is in first. Trevor Red Ranger behind him. It's coming up. This is a new stop. Is it going to be Matt? Trevor Red Ranger!
What?
Wow! That might have been a little gravity. Matt Hyman had a little too much air underneath himself on the jump in. Wow, what an incredible finish. Heartbreak for our guy, Matt Hyman. Elation for Trevor Red Ranger 15. Klassen in third. Spency in fourth. Ardis, Cowboy, VR Montenegro, Leanne Sutton, 18 Over Par pod, and BMCB are the final top 10. Now, I'm involved in some side bets with other WSTers. I'm sure everyone wants to know whether did they survive? Did they get thrown out? I never saw my marble. I have a feeling I may have been part of that crew. Russ Lowen just got burned, and Ringer is waiting to come in. There we go. Wow, what an incredible finish. I'd love to see what the time is on these. Like, how close was that? Oh, you know what? Matt Hyman must have got stuck up on something popping in there, because it was about a second and a half difference between Trevor Red Ranger and the group. Let's roll it down. Let everyone know where they finished, Reem. We rolled through the top 10. Alex Howe, there's Retro Oiler 99. Oh, Bozeman. 17 for Shorn. Nicely done. He's going to win it today. Tristan Rivers Music. That's who my head-to-head bet is every week. Oh, and I did finish too. I finished 36. Not too bad. We both beat Ross, though, I think, because we haven't seen Ross yet. Derminator, Theo Seegers, Brant Batters. Oh, they're in the top 6. There's Dustin. For Tanny, not too bad. You finished at least 63rd. Better than a half. Who else do we have? Mike Wynn. Have a great weekend, Mike. Missy in section 316. T-Will finished. Transcona card. Duck Dad. Shout out to the lock shoppers in the chat. There's Duck Dad. Dutchy finished. Darren Titian 101. Phyllis. And then Ringer, the finally. And then just Amanda top roped. Who else? Candace Jane. Sorry, Candace. And the rest of the marbles that did not make it to the end of the track. That was definitely a wild one, Reem. And yeah, you are right. It was not able to truly handle all 200, and that's why there were as many that got thrown over the top rope as they did.
Yeah, so 206 marbles, 107 of them finished, so 50%.
Close to 50-50, yeah.
So close to 50-50, so I try to do it so most of them finishes, but yeah, I didn't realize people were getting sent over right away. I guess I should test it with, I test them with 50, but we usually run like 150 to 200 marbles.
You know what? I mean, listen, I think overall it was still a really cool one. Like, I wouldn't want to not use that one because we had a few more eliminations. Sometimes you get more over the top ropes and sometimes not. And the track is just burning up. But anyways, unbelievable week. Long weekend coming up. I hope everyone has a great one. Double header tonight. I mean, the second round has been so great. 2 awesome games tonight. Florida, Boston early. Dallas, Colorado late. And then tomorrow, Edmonton and Vancouver. Come on, Oilers. Give us 7. Give us 7 of this series. It has been that good. And hell, while we're at it, Boston, Colorado, give us some other Game 7s later on this week. Only the Rangers are through after vanquishing the Carolina Hurricanes. You staying in town this weekend, or you have got any big plans?
I'm here. Yeah, I want to head out to the zoo. You know, they usually have the dinosaurs there.
You got your season pass, your season tickets already?
I got to renew mine. This year, it's not dinosaurs. It's giant bugs. So I'm going to check that out. I'll see how it compares. But people are asking, is there a show Monday? No show Monday. However, I just had flashbacks to a previous long weekend where the Jets had a big announcement. And the Jets the Jets don't have a head coach right now. Drager's saying the Leafs decision is coming soon. I don't know.
Don't announce a coach or a trade or anything over the course of the weekend. Let's everyone chill. Enjoy a few generics. Get to the beer can and, just go to the lake, do those things. And then we lock in. We lock in focused on Tuesday with the latest offseason news, everything from the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, of course, we'll also be able to break down the first preseason game, have Jeff Hamilton on to find out who stood out and what's going on with these positional battles. Great week, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. I know we kind of stretched this one out a little longer than we normally do. We do want to get the podcast up for everyone that enjoys Winnipeg Sports Talk through the pod. Huge thanks to all of our sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Everyone listening on the pod, everyone hanging out with us on the YouTube, Edmund ESTers that are with us. Good luck tomorrow night. We're all crossing our fingers we get Game 7 between the Canucks and the Oilers. It's been such a fun series. For the rest of you, have a safe weekend. Enjoy wherever you're at. And whatever you do, make sure to be back with us 1 p.m. We'll recap the entire long weekend, PGA Championship as well, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We'll see you Tuesday. Have a great weekend.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast